Step out to try to read the list. I would have had to too.
Yeah.
We're gonna get.
Yeah, the salad is, you know.
There's another bag. We can put another bag together.
And
Let's switch.
congratulations.
Thank you.
So stoked for you.
Thank you very much.
Danny is surprised and so are you.
Thank you very much.
It's really good. Kind of a giddy feeling when I read that.
All right, we're gonna get started with the chamber report. Are we recording? Yes.
Yes,
we are. All right, go ahead.
I got lots of.
You're on mute. Mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can hear you guys loud and clear. In fact, I second that. Congratulations, Ann.
Thank you.
Gonna share screen because I was gonna kick this off with some charts and numbers tonight. The annual performance grid here is the footfall chart. And the numbers there represent the total number of footfalls, not people, but footfalls, 22 versus 23. And you can see that we did have that slump in February, March, and April, but have bounced back in May and June quite nicely. So, and also you can see on the chart here that January number really helped the first quarter because both first and second quarter came out ahead of last year, if you will, on the footfall counts. So good to see those numbers, and hopefully that will we'll see that reflected in the tax report that comes out for those months. I think just March is out so far. Second, I wanted to share carvings for causes. This is where we take the carvings made at Mayfest, put them around town and QR code them and push them on social media for people to bid. So we started zero with a minimum bid, hoping people will. And so far, each of the carvings has received a bid totaling $2,900 combined. The total number that we collect at the end of August for all four combined will be split three ways for the backpack mission with the Leavenworth Community United Methodist Church, school supplies for Cascade Education Foundation, and the swim voucher program with Upper Valley Mend. So those are the three beneficiaries. These can also be viewed in person at these locations here, their Sportsman Gingerbread Factory, Leavenworth Art House, and at our own visitor center. Next on the list, was our Recreation Ambassador Program. And I was just going to share some stats with you. The Scouts and the Chelan Fire District number 3 volunteers were our ambassadors this past weekend. They were at the Stewart Lake Trailhead, where they had a busy day with over 550 interactions. But on the river on Saturday at the fish hatchery location, volunteers from the Scouts had a total of 115 interactions and 106 car count by 1 p.m. It was a very busy day, but they said everyone was well behaved. At the East Leavenworth, we had our CCFD person at the boat launch, had a mellow day with just 37 interactions and a 55 car count by 1 p.m. And also was able to collect 21 pounds of trash throughout the day. On Sunday, the Scouts were at the fish hatchery, 141 interactions, 62 cars were counted by 1. And at East Leavenworth Boat Launch, 95 interactions and 30 cars counted by 1, with 3 bags of trash collected. And at the Barn Beach Takeout, we had someone there for 13 interactions and wanted to point out that the porta potties were completely filthy by 10:45 a.m. So on Sunday, that's their lifespan. And then finally, we've got a video coming out that we started last year through LAP, and this is a fall festival, fall foliage, celebrate fall video that was done by local Vortex Video, and it has footage from last year's Oktoberfest and Autumn Leaf Festival. So look for that on socials. That'll be coming out. And then on July 1st, we started ticket sales for Oktoberfest, and we are very tickled to share that for each of the 6 days, we've sold 20% of the tickets already in 10 days. So with that trajectory, we're clearly on the way to sell out prior to the event, but we do hold back a certain % amount of tickets to sell at the door. And that is my update.
All right. Troy, one quick question. I missed the very beginning. Did you have like a ballpark percentage of what the footfalls were increasing by this year?
Oh,
You just kind of estimate. I saw the graph and I didn't have time to really estimate the percent increase of footfalls between this year and last year. And I just wanted to get a feel for the trend. Yeah.
yeah, the trend is about 8% growth
Okay.
when all combined for the first and second quarter, about there.
Super. Yeah, that's all I was asking. Thank you so much. Super. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks, Troy. Sounds like you're at full volume.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. The voice is
Yeah.
back nicely. I can do all of my best hits on karaoke again. So my agent says the phone's been ringing off the hook. Not for anything for me, but it's just been ringing off the hook apparently. But yeah, but it's nice. I didn't have to have the surgery after all. So yeah, vocal cords back online. So watch out.
Okay. We're looking out for a top 10 hit pretty soon.
Right. Bye now. All right, next up, PRSA pool feasibility study.
So did everybody have a chance to read that or to watch that video that was
Of the-
circulated
Of the meeting from the last meeting.
June?
Yep.
I was there, so I didn't need to watch it.
Oh, great. I had to watch it because I wasn't there. So we decided to add this to the study session. So if you all saw the survey results, what you saw basically was that people want a pool, but they don't want to raise their taxes to pay for it.
Right. It's kind of a given.
Now, at our last meeting.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. There was, after that meeting, Keith from NAC did put together a proposal to pay for a low-end pool without using property taxes. But what it would do was it would require the creation of a public facilities district that would generate about $600,000, which would pay up about a $9 million bond over 25 years. He was also proposing utilizing $600,000 per year of lodging taxes for the pool.
That's a lot more than we use now, a whole lot more.
A whole lot.
Well, there'll be a whole lot more people, visitors using. I mean, per the RCW.
Yeah, but in the meeting, we were talking about the difference between like $75,000 and $150,000, not $600,000.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to get your council's feedback on that idea. I did mention it to the Chamber of Commerce at their board meeting, and if I owned a hotel that had a pool in it, I sure as heck wouldn't want to see the lodging taxes that my hotel is generating being spent on a community pool. And I'm guessing that the sentiment would be shared by the hoteliers in the town, although I haven't gone around and asked them. But I know that lodging tax is tricky, and I also know that we have a really huge project on Front Street, and we have no idea what that's going to cost. So to encumber 25 years of future lodging tax to build an indoor pool, I don't think, in my professional opinion, personal opinion, would be a wise use of our lodging tax dollars. And I think that it would create a fissure between the council and the business community, particularly the lodging establishments. But that's something I wanted to talk with you guys about and get your guidance as to how to direct the consultants to move forward. Because at this point, the project is kind of the PRSA has done what they can do. There is one additional operating cost estimate they're going to conduct at the PRSA's request for all the bells and whistles complex. And then after that, their project is basically ready for their final report.
And the reason we want that is because it has what's called the dry side amenities, so gym type stuff. And the cost to operate that is not very much. It's not as labor intensive as the pool.
That's right.
And it brings in more money.
Right.
So the capital costs go up,
Yeah.
but the operating costs go up minimally.
Minimally.
And the revenue.
And the revenue goes up because people they'll pay more for a membership that includes more. than just-
Right. We could do that on the second floor. I mean, that can be built up.
Correct. Yeah.
Without taking up space.
I'd like to know what those amenities would be in there, like are there room for learning to line dance and these kinds of things and an indoor track and stuff
Not an
like
indoor
that?
track, it wasn't that extensive. What it
Okay.
included, and I'm sorry, I was preparing for your executive session and didn't spend time preparing for this conversation. I apologize. What I remember was there was going to be rooms for fitness studios, a room for weights, a function room that people could rent out for birthday parties and whatnot. And also I think the larger option included hot tubs outside, if I remember right, that's what they were talking about. I can't remember, I think it was,
There was a lazy river, but is that in both?
no, that's in
options?
both options. The dry side amenities were basically weight room, fitness studio, so spin studio, yoga studio, that sort of thing. And a function room. Those were the three amenities that I remember being pitched as the dry side amenities. But I haven't been to Balance Point. I have been to Club West. In my opinion, as a resident, you could use a nicer facility. And I
Balance
was,
Point is nice, it's just tiny,
Right,
Gotcha.
right.
it's a micro
Right.
gym.
yeah,
It's a real small.
So
You gotta go.
to
through.
clarify, you just covered 600,000 from a PFD.
Yep.
And the other 600,000 from potentially lodging tax. That's just to build the facility.
right. It still required $600,000
Then there
subsidy.
was a $600,000 shortfall on the operations side.
That was for the basic pool, not for the one with the dry side.
Right, that's why.
That was making an assumption on visitor use though.
It does, but it
Yeah.
also takes into account that we don't have any other funding in place. We don't have any grants. We don't have any donations. We don't have anything.
It's a little early to be on the fundraising side.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so the 400,000 from Kim Schreier, not possible. That can't go towards the pool.
We still don't know.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, still don't have a word from them,
You know what?
but I wouldn't hang my hat on it.
And a PFD does have to be voter approved.
Yeah.
So if the PFD were to be placed in front of the voters and failed, I think that this project would definitely be a no-go.
But there's PRSA taxes that I think based on the survey, people would be willing to at least double, if not triple what they're paying now, but not the high end of what you're saying. There was a certain level where the cutoff for the survey said, hey, we're not going to pay more than this, but they were willing to pay more for a pool. Because right now everyone's paying 11 cents. I mean, that's about the lowest tax you can get.
What I remember is that
Mosquito fund is the lowest.
Okay, that's like.
It's the best.
you need
It's the best reason.
60% at the ballot in order to approve a tax increase.
Right,
And a full 40% said they weren't willing to vote for a property tax increase.
right. But there was one question that talked about how much were you willing to spend?
Yeah, there was one that talked about
And
that.
so I don't remember the exact number, so.
25 cents per thousand, 50 cents per thousand,
Yeah.
35 cents per thousand, and $1 per thousand were the four options that were listed.
Yeah, the talk is cheap until it comes.
Yeah, and then and what I did in that question was. At a $500,000 assessed valuation, your property taxes will go up $20.83 per month at the 50 cents per thousand option. Just to have people help.
And that would give us another like 600,000 or 700,000. Right now, we're at 200,000 with the 11 cents. So if you doubled or tripled that, you could get to 600,000, which is about 40 cents.
The 20 cents, $20.30 sounds good, but you don't pay it that way. It's tacked onto your taxes, and so that boosts your taxes. I mean, that's what you see is when you go to pay your taxes, eek.
Right, what would happen is if you look at your property tax bill, you've got a city of Leavenworth line item, you've got six different school line items,
Exactly.
you've got 3 different hospital line items. So there's one PRSA, that's the 11 cents. There'd be another one that would be PRSA, or actually it'd be city capital, because the city would take out the bond.
If we were using it for construction, it would be a separate one. If we're doing what Marco's suggesting, which is take the existing M&L and increase it to its max, it would be the same one. It would just be a lot more money.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, we could do it either way.
you can do both
Right.
if your voters will approve it.
Right. And if we had a reasonable assurance of revenue, could we do a revenue bond? Because it sounds like we could. It would be a risk, but could we do it?
No, this is not an enterprise fund.
But you could
The
do
pool
a
is not
revenue
an
bond, you could do a
enterprise
revenue
fund.
bond for a parking lot.
No, we actually already got response that the PRSA itself cannot do it,
PRSA cannot
City
do a revenue bond.
but you have. I disagree. I
Okay.
don't think.
No, I'm curious. I'm not arguing.
We could do a general obligation bond if we have the bonding capacity, but I do not believe a revenue. bond.
a property tax?
Okay, because I've read of other municipalities using revenue bonds
Okay.
for recreation facilities.
So what's the bottom line to rehab this?
You can.
Come again?
What's the bottom line to rehab this? and Keep it.
We don't have
It
a cost.
raises
Do you have,
this much?
you don't have a-
In, so rehab, in the budget breakout that NEC provided, I believe they had a $3.5 million.
It's $35 a year.
Flyer. So that's basically just building the
That's at
pool.
the 11
And then
cents.
the building on top of it,
Or
where
that's a
it's
7 cents.
the real cost.
If we want it covered.
Correct.
Did you talk about sales tax piece?
That's
It's the
the.
PFD.
Oh, that would be the PFD. Okay, because that was overwhelmingly supported.
It was,
Yeah.
I'm looking through the answers right
it
now.
was.
Yep.
And it might have been the way the survey was structured, because nothing's perfect, and it might have led people to think that I can choose between sales
Right.
tax or property tax. If I could go back in time, I would have massaged the language a little bit and said this, and I think it said it's gonna require multiple funding sources, but I don't think people really read that.
Read that is
To
two
believe
different.
we're gonna need this and this and this in order to do it.
It just gets overwhelming.
Sal, did you run that by again about if you tripled, it would increase our taxes $20 a year?
No.
I mean,
No,
I'm
that
sorry,
was
$20 a
21.
month, something.
That was the estimation at a 50 cents per thousand at a $500,000 home value,
Okay,
$20.83 per month. Added onto your tax bill.
what's already being paid. Okay.
We're at a really critical time right now with this, and there's been a lot of work put into it. And the survey is not perfect, like no survey is. I think there's definitely some uncertainty by the respondents, well, what does this mean? You couldn't paint a complete picture of what the project was, the cost and the impact, and so. Just feel like we can't say yes or no. I don't know I don't know that we've exhausted the feasibility part from a funding and community outreach, and I just feel like we're not there yet. Like I'm looking at question 15. 80% of the people say that a year-round indoor aquatic program is either, most 60% said high, 20% said medium. So, whatever, take that with a grain of salt, but 80% of the 1,100 people that replied want it. It's the funding thing. That's the sensitivity.
I don't know the question though is, okay, you can want it, but are they gonna use it? That's the question that's not getting answered. Is
We do
I
have a
say I
question.
want this. and
We have a
want
question
that
about
in
that.
my community, but then
I can tell you,
They didn't even survey our
and
primary.
how many times do they have to use it to make this thing feasible? Because pools are. They circle the drain when it comes to money.
So do schools.
That's called an athletic.
Yeah, well, you know what? These things cost. You know what the average hotel cost to fund a pool? Keep a pool going.
there's no doubt it could
60 to
be.
80 grand a year.
Yeah.
Just keep, and you're already charging for it. But why do we live here? We live here because it's everything it has to offer. I'm just trying to be realistic and say. If I was selling this to the public, I would start the other way and say, look, for $3.5 million, we can have a pool. A pool that's getting used as it is now. Now,
Status quo.
status quo, you get a pool.
3 months out of the year.
Yeah, I'm not finished yet.
About 4.
That's not
Or
good.
about 4, which is the way it's been ever since that pool's been in the ground. Before this one got built, when the old pool was there, whatever, that's how this thing was. Then I would go and say, okay, and that would cost you X amount of dollars per year in your property taxes. Then for an addition, an add-on would be another component and a component. But when you start at 18 million, you go down to 10 and you go down to 9, you're never going to sell it. People are just going to say, I'm tired of paying taxes. I'm tired of seeing the number. Interest rates are going up, cost of living's going up, inflation's up. People, the last school bond was tough. It failed twice.
Yeah, it took 3 times.
3 times.
Well, schools circle the drain. They don't make anything.
Yeah.
But I don't go to the school.
And when the community
don't
voted
have
for
that's-
covered
but-
pool,
but-
they voted it down.
Voted it down. The people that go.
When
to
we asked for 3 extra cents just a couple of years ago on the MNO, the people voted it down.
So to get the realistic is, do you want a pool and what are you willing to live with versus? You know, we're not quite trying to boil the ocean here. If you want a pool, build a pool, but it'd be nice to have an indoor pool with all this other stuff, but it's not realistic. You can't pay for it. And we should encumber the city and the residents and the future councils with that number. I think it's wrong
Why do so many tourist towns have pools, like indoor aquatic centers? Why do you think that is?
because they live in a
Privately
metropolitan
built.
area.
Like Aspen, Colorado, and Vail, and Jackson Hole, and
Yeah, well, you know what? If we had an airport with these jets dropping in here on East Leavenworth Road, I'd say build the thing.
Yeah.
But we don't.
they're increasing the airport in East Wenatchee.
Well, the people, just wanted a pool, the pool covered, a pool, covered pool, so they could swim through the year, through
Right.
relax and whatever.
Right.
Through the season, swimming lessons,
Yeah,
the school uses it, whatever. But they didn't ask for the Taj Mahal and they don't want the Taj Mahal.
I mean, okay,
Unless somebody else is gonna pay
So
for it,
if-
not them.
if you go to the dollar. You know, per thousand. So your taxes go up $120 a month, but. Then on top of that, do I have to buy a membership for the pool too?
Yeah, but that's
exactly.
okay.
If I'm already paying for it, then I gotta pay to use it.
Yes.
You know, and so. That's the unrealistic part to me, because. If you got a family of 4 or 5. That adds up.
Do we know that they wouldn't want bare bones year round thing? Do we know that do they know how much that costs? Like what you're talking about?
It's
Yeah.
18,000,
What is it?
18.
What?
Million.
15 million.
Just 18,000.
18 million for,
That was the lower.
but it's still a fancy facility.
Yeah, that's a Taj
It's
Mahal.
got a lazy river and.
It's a brand.
Right. But none of
We
these
just don't need all
hotels are
that.
built to
Just
lazy
have a
river.
pool.
They've got it
Swim in
built in
year round.
millions. They haven't built in, some have indoors, some don't.
The pools at the hotels are sideshows, they're not main shows, and I was gonna go back to your question, Selby. What percentage of hotels here have?
Just looking at the aerial and council chambers, I say about half.
Really?
Okay, more than that.
Which ones are year round?
Big hotels.
The Post is year round, Bavarian's year round, Ice School Village Resorts is. They got 2 years.
Hampton.
One asphalt one.
The
Oh.
Icicle Village.
Yeah,
I haven't been inside Hampton Inn, so I'm not sure if they do.
I think they do.
There is one.
No, no,
Indoor one.
yeah, and whatever the hotel is up here by Rutloose.
But that's kind of
Right.
apples and oranges, because
It's been named
none of those are
something
really
different.
aquatic centers.
Yeah,
No, they're not.
No.
Well, but that's what they're not claiming it.
No, they're not.
The people that are in them go down and dip in those. I mean.
The visitors.
And my point of bringing that up
Hotels.
was about the use of lodging tax, which is generated by our hotels.
Yeah.
Right,
To build a pool, and I just said, if I owned a hotel with a pool in it. I probably would be opposed to having the lodging taxes that my establishment are generating for the city to be used on a pool.
but then that would ask the question is having an aquatic center as proposed gonna increase tourism? Or at least contribute to tourism, because I think it would.
Well, thinking is one thing and betting on it with your dollars is another.
Well, that's why I would ask for data on that, and if that was part of the survey, if it wasn't part of the survey or part of the
It was part of your
feasibility.
meeting. They
should
were
have.
giving very accurate assumptions based on their experience.
Experience with
That's what
other
the consultants for.
Right. and
Ken
they-
Ballard, who put together the operating costs, has told me in meetings that you weren't party to, that no pool makes money, all pools lose money, all pools require subsidy.
Right,
All,
but they could.
100%. The one in Jackson Hole, the one in Aspen,
Yeah.
the one in Vail, they all require subsidy from the taxpayers.
Are those city pools or are those
Those are
something
county
else?
pools, municipal county pools.
Right.
Okay. We do have people that are in hotels that have pools that come to our pool because they can lap swim and the frogs on the deck and the kids can do
Right.
fun things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
Right,
hotels
it doesn't happen, right.
wouldn't use it. I was talking more about the use of lodging tax to
Yeah.
build it.
Yeah.
Especially when we have a large competing capital need on Front Street.
You could survey the businesses and say, how do you feel about it? So if the majority of people who have, like, it's just hotels that pay lodging tax, not restaurants, right?
Correct.
So you could ask their opinion, get Troy to put something out there and say, hey, I mean, they're not all part of the chamber, are they? Every hotel.
I would think that they're the majority of them.
Okay, so but if you could go to every hotel and say, here's what we're proposing, at least we could have data instead of making.
Or just poll the chamber members.
I'm trying to
And
pull
the difficulty is too, is that, you know, we've got this feasibility and it gives you a concept. People don't want to vote on a concept,
Right.
they want to see a
Yeah.
design, so you got to spend a lot more
Yeah.
to get something to vote on,
We have
basically.
a couple designs.
You need to tell.
Well,
them
no,
what the
but
membership is
they're not designed to the point of passing all the standards and what it would be, because people are going. I mean, that's their reaction is. There's not enough there for them to decide.
I
mean,
don't think that we should be making this decision or providing guidance tonight. I think that this deserves a larger community conversation
Sure.
with a lot of the information that we reviewed in the PRSA meeting that we all prepared for tonight. The consultants provided a lot of great information, and I think the community deserves to be a part of the decision-making process, knowing what all the options are, what they cost, what their tax increase potentially would be for each option, various different funding sources, and let the community help us decide what they want.
I would like to see that community, I agree with you, but I would like to see that community, all the people have an opportunity that are actually going to pay for it and not anybody from the outside.
Right, you have to be in the PRSA.
Yeah, and the PRSA may be expanding at this point as well to the school district, which is, I think, about 10 or 20%.
Well, that's your one for sure thing.
Yeah,
It's the only for sure
With
thing
the
we have
vote
as far as.
of the people, we can't just
yeah.
expand.
I think she's got a good point though. I think that's worth time in a community meeting.
Yeah.
But it's for sure.
And I
I
think,
want the community to make a decision like this. And
Yeah.
this survey is a
Right.
temperature, it's a dip in the pool, you know, it's a grab sample of information. It's not.
I agree. I think there was a call last night for having more public forums.
yeah,
And the mayor said that when necessary, we would do them. I think this is a point where we could say this is necessary.
Yeah,
From a scheduling standpoint, it's the middle of summer,
Yeah, that's
so
fine.
sometime in September.
Yeah.
yeah.
And we
At
need
that
to make
point-
sure that the stuff that,
And I don't think that this is a community engagement night. I think this is
No,
by
it's
itself.
standalone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's what we're
Sure.
saying, is that's what
This
they were
is
saying.
by itself, and we
Yeah,
invite
yeah.
everybody to the fest hall.
Well, I
you
think it's,
figure out a way to have for NHC to present this information very concisely, because you gotta keep it kind of high level. So that people can track.
yeah,
I wanted to mention, you know, just I think every time we bring this up, it deserves mention that. This all came from the recreational needs assessment that we completed in 2021.
Yeah, during COVID.
And there was a resounding first place, stood out. And so that's where this comes from. And Sharon mentioned something valid, that the PRSA made a tough decision early after we hired NHC, because we hired them and we had money for like 3 alternatives, I think. And we threw out the bubble dome for aesthetics, longevity, and the labor costs and storage associated with putting it up, taking it down. Those 3 things we thought were strong enough reason to kill it. That would have been inexpensive. Potentially even snow loading. I'm not even sure if they can handle
so
snow.
we got a quote, I prepared
Yeah.
a quote for this, for the PRSA about 6 years ago
Yeah.
for $500,000. I got a quote from a company that builds bubbles in Chicago. They assessed our climate. It was $500,000 plus the cement, wall they'd have to put to do it. And that was offered to the PRSA and they refused it 6 years ago.
Well,
I
maybe,
just can't see a bubble on the pool with especially all the snow load and everything I don't see it.
That's
I think
okay.
it's
The
a
engineers could
mistake.
see it.
Pardon me?
The engineers could see it.
Oh, well, I guess they're much smarter than I am. I can't see
They're
it.
engineers.
I don't know, we made some
You do
tough
see it
decisions at the
collapse.
beginning that didn't involve public input. It was like, we had to narrow it down and we killed the really cheap option. We also killed the retractable thing because we didn't think it was feasible from snow loading and the consultants didn't think that was a good route to go for our climate, but I don't know, maybe we need a bubble cost and concept as a you know,
Option.
the way cheap option, because both our options are big. Super expensive.
Not realistic.
But we need to be realistic about our existing pool. It's not gonna last
That's-
forever.
I think
It
that's-
needs to be replaced.
I think that's a really important thing
And
that
that
would
has
have
to
to be
be
shared.
a part of the
Yeah.
conversation.
In 5 years, we're
Community.
looking at replacing the pool for X number of dollars. So the public knows there's gonna be an investment made soon.
Well,
I
and it
think
would-
that's an important thing to bring up.
But you can at least start planning and putting money away for that now,
Yeah,
where versus saying, hey, here's the tab. You know, does the pool need to be here? That's the other question.
Yes,
it could
That,
be
that came
behind.
up a lot
Yes.
in the survey comments as well. And people at the community engagement nights were also questioning whether the pool needed to be where it was. And some people have the notion that it should go down to the Osborne property.
Except you don't have the parking. I mean,
No, it would take up the part.
yes, you lose.
It would take up all the property.
Yeah,
What's the benefit of moving it?
The property where it is now is actually more valuable used as commercial.
Oh, so
Even
sell
though
the property and use the money to buy.
It's zoned recreational, so it doesn't even have to be Bavarian, but
If we
yeah,
hypothetically, if we sold that pool lot, I wonder what we could get for it.
Probably
If we-
two-
Would we
two or
have to
three
do a
million.
boundary line adjustment?
All right, you weren't here for the whole meeting last meeting.
No, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You guys will be brought, probably not next meeting, maybe early August,
Oh.
maybe next meeting. To entertain a letter of intent with Tom Lynn
Yeah.
to evaluate the feasibility of doing a land swap whereby we would get the car wash, he would get the pool property, and he would build the indoor pool on his
for
own.
20 years.
Minimum.
No, he said for 20 years.
I think I heard part of
No,
it.
he said.
he was open
He's open.
to, everything is still so conceptual, that's
So I
why.
feel like the conversation with Tom Lynn muddies our current conversation because there's two completely different pool options
Right.
that are under discussion right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So we need more information. We need to be having more conversations.
Sure.
We don't even know where this is going with Tom and whether it's going to be a good idea for us. We haven't
Right.
made any decisions.
Right.
The land swap would be the pool property for the car wash plus building,
Well, then he would take on
He
those.
would take on the,
then you build the pool, oh, by Safeway or something.
yeah.
No, well,
You can't
no,
build it there.
here, he said,
He built it there.
but he kept mentioning the 20 years, so when 20 years are up. If that's what we agreed to, now I would be flabbergasted to find out that he didn't have a plan to put something in there. And so now where is a community pool gonna go in? We just won't have one maybe.
So
What
I
property is
think,
gonna be
Sharon,
left
that
20
in
years from
this
now?
whole process, the idea would be to ensure that the city is got a pool
Forever.
forever. So however, if he, whatever he mentioned, he also mentioned going, that was not a fixed time, he was open. I mean, this is so many, again,
Yeah.
question marks. We don't have any answers, and that's why,
Just a proposal,
it's a concept.
right?
We don't even know what the feasible.
It's just throwing out options.
No, and I do want to reiterate that the city reached out to the property owner, the car wash, based on our feedback that we received from the council during the retreat, that this was something that worth investigating, so we did.
That was
We
the
had already,
priority, right?
we had already done an appraisal for the property. And his counter was, why don't we do a land swap? I'll take the pool. So this wasn't a staff or mayoral
Driven.
idea. This was something that.
But his point was that he could do it cheaper and then the city would pay for the use of it for the citizens of Leavenworth. And we wouldn't have the burden of building it and we would be paying off a loan anyway, or some kind of maintenance fee anyway. So our annual payment to him for the use that would be replacing our loan payment, our operations payment, and the community fee, user fee payment is pretty much an even swap. And then he would build a pool and then
Sounds too good to be
he
true.
would potentially make money off the visitors because he'd know how to do it, because he knows how to run a business. He's a businessman. That's
I
what he
look
does.
forward to learning more in August about that.
So part of tonight, what we really wanted was, one, for you guys to get up to speed with where the PRSA has been. But two, we needed to be able to give NAC their final direction, because we're nearing the end of their contract term. They've got a few more things left to do. Selby mentioned they're running the full scenario on the full enchilada, so that we know what that looks like. But at this point, it's about closing out this contract and.
Well, their contract's good till the end of the year, so they can just be on hold for a
Oh,
little
yeah, the
bit, right?
contract is good until the end. of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And the contract was for 70,000. How much?
Yeah, it's 90.
90?
Quiet. Did they give us a cost for replacing that pool? Selby, did you say?
It's in the budget. So if you look at every budget option they gave us, one line item was the pool, and that was
and then,
consistent.
you know.
So that was about 3.5, between 3.5 and 4.
Would you mind asking them to give us a solid estimate for a bubble? Just to give the public more options?
I can send you a copy of the structure proposal I got from, it's right in front of me. I just pulled it up. I can send it to you, Selby.
The contract was just under 70,
Just under
Okay.
70?
just under
I didn't think it was a 90.
I didn't think so either.
69.
My memory.
Maybe flip the numbers.
Oh, I'm thinking about the parking study.
That one's
Too many studies.
It used to only be 30, now they're multiples of.
I spoke to Keith about getting survey data from the kids, because I feel like the survey is incomplete when I read about the bunch of things that the kids could weigh in on, not necessarily the taxes, but the features. Like, for instance, nobody wants a surf wave in the survey. Well, of course, you're all adults. How many people here surf? I surf all the time. You surf, right? Would you do it?
Of course you do.
Would you do the surf wave?
Sure, I go to Chelan every weekend, just kidding, I don't.
If it was here. No, but like the Snoqualmie, the Snohomish Aquatic Center, they actually built their surf wave on a risk. They didn't have a lot of data because back then they were kind of new. And they said is their #1 revenue generating feature at that pool. And ask Slide Waters that their surf wave is so revenue generating.
See how big that is?
Well, this
Yeah.
the one in Snohomish would be indoor. It's the indoor one like we would have. But the point is, all of the features that were voted on are things that kids would vote differently on. And I feel like they need to be part of the conversation, like Ann said. So I'd like to see their input. And in September, I feel like we could, instead of asking NAC, we could intelligently design a survey, send it to the school and let the school survey the kids.
I remember you send that email, Marco, and I also remember Keith's reply.
Yeah,
Which
he said
was-
they don't have money for it.
Well, it's outside their scope. We already spent 3,000 on an additional on the survey they did do.
PRSA could do it. That's what I'm saying.
But what he said was, now's not the time to poll the kids on what features they want. That's when you have the decision that you're actually gonna move forward with building something. That's when you want to reach out to them and say, exactly what amenities would you like to see incorporated as we're designing this project?
Okay.
if there's an amenity line item and we can make a decision on all of the different.
Yeah,
things.
Well, I was just saying, if you're gonna talk about cost, amenities is a big part of that.
What is?
Amenity features in the pool is a big part of cost. That's why the more you can lock down your features before you get the design worked out. In other words, saying, yeah, we're gonna design a pool, but these are the features that the community wants. Let's say a conglomerate of the adults and the kids have decided these are the features. Because features decide, like that surf wave, $700,000. That's a big part of it right there. And then the slides and the diving boards. Kids want diving boards. They're competitive, you know. Do we need 6 lanes or 8 lanes? I don't know. Let's ask the swim team.
I'm with Selby on what you just commented on.
Yeah.
Get further along before we start choosing what to be in it.
I think a general list of the available amenities would be helpful in the conversation with the community. Because that's gonna help them decide which one you
Didn't
should.
we have that?
It was in the survey.
And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
get kids involved early, they're gonna bug their parents to pay for a tax. I mean, why?
Unfortunately, we're gonna need a lot of voters who don't even have kids.
Yeah, but we also have.
Guess what? Guess what? What our population ages? Come on.
Oh, I know, but we also have 30% of the people who don't live here who are forced into paying a tax and they can't vote on it, which is pretty cool.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So thank you. I got some take homes. I got some tasks for NAC and also tasks to create a public forum. Is the fest hall the best from an acoustic standpoint to have a forum of this nature?
Yeah,
Only one big enough, I feel like, if you had a good turnout.
Yeah, because last night was atrocious.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
No, I think
atrocious.
the festival,
Yeah,
About bikes.
Yeah, I've only been there for,
right.
not for a presentation. I've either been there for an Oktoberfest band or I've been
Or the high
there
school
for,
auditorium,
you know,
For the what?
or the high school auditorium, because it has bleacher seating.
Maybe done a parking.
Yeah, that's a good one. The auditorium has great acoustics.
Yeah.
That's
We would need
actually,
to-
I
we
would say
need to
that's the
Make
best.
sure it has a screen. I haven't been in there a little bit.
I want to publicly thank Selby for coming over and tapping me and saying, would you like to sit in my chair? I was about ready to leave. I was like, oh my goodness.
Last night?
Yes, I know I can stand there much
He gave
longer.
his chair up.
Yeah, he gave his chair, but he over and said,
Gentlemen.
yeah. I
would've
really
given my
appreciate
chair
it.
up.
I want to take yours.
That was the hot seat.
That was a big hot seat.
But you couldn't see the target on my back.
There was that, it was good. I think it was both front and back.
Oh. You saw the front.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it. I think it's a great ongoing discussion, and I think there's a huge, like, just to end the discussion with where Jason started it. It was the primary request in the 2021 recreation needs assessment. So I don't think it's going to be ignored by the public.
Well, and that's great, because that's a snapshot in time, but again, when the nitty gritty comes, you gotta listen again, because the outcome may be very different. And so that's what we gotta find out.
Wish lists are easy.
Yeah, they are, all the needs, yes, I want that. That's why we had that $200 million worth of, Oh, okay.
Marco says that's not a lot.
Sorry, I usually say get it for being exaggerated.
No, I know, but that's what happens.
All right,
So keep it.
we'll move on to Project Tracker.
And I have several questions, and probably Tom, everybody can leave the room and Tom and I sit here. Okay, on the project.
All right, questions from Eric?
Where's the first
I
one?
have D.
On that page. Okay, on page 412. I underlined, it was the one about the combined sewer and storm water system improvements. And I underlined the bottom, city staff, which is notified this project has not funded. So I just kind of wanted, if you got a little briefing on that.
The Ski Hill CSO.
Yeah, where does it, what did you?
I think she said combined.
Page 4.
Combined sewer and stormwater system improvements.
That was just notified of this, yes, so we applied for it was a robust grant loan combination of upwards of $5+ million. And we initially made a draft funding list. However, once they went through it, scored everything, we made the final cut.
That was congressional direct spending, right?
That was through part of the college.
Oh,
Yeah, we also applied for is it Cantwell? Yeah, Cantwell's office direct spending, which we haven't done back yet.
Okay, the next one is on the next page, 5 of 12. Security fencing, wall field, and well field. Oh, we'll get my glasses on, and deck and pool pond. I consider that a high safety. I didn't bring my glasses, rats. I consider that a high safety issue, and I'm not sure why we haven't gone that.
So I
jumped on it.
Yeah, I have a scope of work from Gray and Osborne on my desk right now. that I got
Okay.
Last week, so once I get that reviewed, we're gonna move forward on the design of that, and that should be quick. We just have to get a bid package put together.
Well, that was something, a fence that can be climbed over.
It'll have barbed wire.
You'll have, okay, good, several feet of it.
Everybody's gonna put LSD.
Okay, and on the next page, 6 of 12.
Oh,
Number of the 2023 residential street restoration program. Where are we with that?
So we are pursuing a TIV grant for that program. The call for projects for the TIV, I think they're open now, but applications are due in August.
Okay, I had a very angry man come to the pool the other day to talk to me about it and said he sold his house and he's moving because our streets are so bad and we're not paying any attention to it. He wasn't able to listen to anything, so
Yeah.
what is what it
Yeah,
is.
again, the limiting
No,
factor
the
there is our
screen doors.
utilities.
Yeah,
We're gonna
action button,
rebuild
where
streets
is
starting
that?
tomorrow, but we'll be rebuilding streets over deficient utilities.
Yeah, I tried to mention that, but
I don't want to hear it, but the reality is you don't want to put good money over bad. I mean, that's what's been done too long.
Okay, and I wondered if some of this, does it go in the Echo? Do we ever send anything to the Echo to kind of report where we are on things? Because, Carol's doing a good job of bringing this echo back to a community paper and taking picture of kids and everything. And I wondered if we should have blurbs and echo on some of these. It doesn't have to be anything long and detailed, but just kind of how we operate.
Right, right. No, for sure. And just note too, I mean, we took advantage of the DOT project and we paved 12th Street, Chopstick Highway. Those are both city streets that did not have deficient utilities. So we did pave some streets this year.
And I didn't know that Chumstick Highway was a city street. I thought Chumstick was.
It's Chelan County once it starts at about.
Once it gets to this, yeah.
School, basically, it's a painted rock.
So past the school, we put in all that stuff for Metal Arc when it was gonna go through, and that was on county then, or that was city?
That's county, right?
That was county, okay. On page 7 of 12, review solid waste collection and recycling operations. And I wondered, have we gotten, or Ariana or anybody gotten any grants? I mean, how, I see a pilot grant was awarded.
Yeah, we got the USDA composting grant that we briefed you on 2 meetings ago.
2 meetings ago.
374,000.
Okay, and that was now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. So we put together RFPs. I proofed them over the weekend. And we're gonna finalize with legal before we publish, but the intent is to follow procurement procedures laid out by the federal government for the
Okay.
funding. And our hope is to award to Waste Loop and to Winton
Good,
and.
good.
We still have to jump through the hoops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those dreaded hoops, huh?
Those better.
On page 8 of 12, street extension from Titus to Chumstick Highway. I put a line, let's say. Do we have a preliminary design? And I put a line under the developer will construct a street off Chumstick Highway. The goal is of this project is to connect the proposed developer roadway through Titus Road. So are we working on that or just kind of hanging back?
The developer's doing the full design, right, Tom?
Correct. So the developer, the Muller Group is doing the design of the full roadway from start to finish.
Who is?
The
Muller,
developer,
which
the
is the
Muller
builder
Group,
of-
Widener Apartments.
Oh, from all those. Okay.
Yep, yep.
For some reason, I thought we had to build that road through there.
So they're the design, they're gonna do the full design, but in terms of construction, they're only constructing their portion of the roadway from the Chumstick Highway to the entrance.
Okay,
Right, so we need to find a funding source or funding avenue to finish the project.
okay,
from
because
the
that's
entrance to
city,
Titus.
they're in the city, okay.
But we could get them to do it.
We could
So-
explore. Oh, go ahead, Lo.
Yeah, so
What?
I could just jump in briefly because the developer is willing to do a development extension agreement and construct the road. They're not required to pay for that additional portion that they're not accessing off of, but they could develop it as part of their project, and we could save quite a bit of money with that. So we need to just put together a development extension agreement and see if everybody's agreeable and bring that to the city council. We also need to have a funding source for it. The last estimate for the remainder portion of the road was 800,000.
So, and just again, to follow up, is that was brought up to me in a conversation with Representative Gaynor, who was aware when he was county commissioner, I think, that was talked about punching that through.
Mhm.
And he said, why don't you guys come to the next legislative with that on your list? So that was from him. That wasn't from me. So I told Tom about it, and I think we can pursue that as one option to get that one done. And
Great. He was there last night.
yeah, for a little while, did he stay?
Yeah.
Did he? Oh, I didn't see him after a while. They all blended together.
Okay, well, you could see from your standing, couldn't you?
When I finally stood,
Okay, that was very nice, Sharon, stop that. Okay.
I can take.
Next page, 10 of 12. The water source replacement feasibility study and drought mitigation conservation plan. I underline willing property owners to allow the construction of a test well. And I wonder what that it referred to.
So part of the project, the scope of work is to drill up to 3 test wells. And that's obviously to do like an actual pump test of aquifer that will have to be evaluated whether or not it can produce, municipal quantities of water. So we have to find willing property owners, because the spots that we've identified, aside from the golf course, are their private property owners that are around the Wenatchee River.
Okay, and we would do a test well on their property with their permission.
With their permission, and they're entitled to just compensation, so we'd have to entertain
Okay.
some kind of easement or property acquisition or temporary rights. Like, that's very preliminary this time, and we could have somebody could say like, oh yeah, do whatever you want to do, or they might want X, Y, and Z. So it'll be a process to get temporary rights to drill test well on private property.
Okay, and I'm trying to move along. I don't have a lot more left, so. On page 12 of 12. The emergency response ordinance, I just wrote priority by it. And up above, I said, I underlined new for 2021 or on hold from previous years. So how are we coming with that? Is it finished or is it still a group meeting?
So I know we made small progress towards this. So the first summer I was here, we entered into the Warren contract. And that had preloaded kind of FEMA language in it. So if there's a disaster related to a utility, like such as water or sewer, there's already the reimbursement language built into that contract, so we could seek reimbursement in FEMA.
Okay.
So I believe that's part of that
Right.
emergency response agreements.
Okay. Okay, moving right along, I hope. Oh, I have a thing on page 1 of 13, and I underlined Chantel. There was the second one, resolution XX 2023 golf course final reserve funding release, 50,000. Is that from the sale of the golf?
It is. So the original previous council who sold the first 2 golf lots, you guys put a resolution in place that earmarked those funds. 2 years ago, we bought the property. We released all but 50K of it. I think it was 480,000 at the time. We released 430 of it to buy the property, and the other 50 is sitting out there as reserve.
So will that 50 go towards Osborne?
Something. Tear down, build
Okay.
up.
Okay,
Whether it is helping the new park improvements
Okay.
or helping demolition, whatever
Okay.
it needs to be. I just don't want to forget about this because that's an audit item.
it is an odd item. And so for the first 2 properties, where did that money go?
We bought Osborne.
That's what we used to buy on.
I know, but that was a lot more money than what we used to buy.
We actually had Osborne
Osborne was
was
more.
money, and we had to take some funding as well from our real estate excise tax fund
Right.
to purchase the property, because the purchase was, I think, over 600,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Let me see if I'm almost done. I am done.
Yay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. All right, moving on, administrative decision process.
Wait, I have a few questions.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
just a couple of points where Sharon made some excellent points, by the way. I do want to talk about the well field. I'm doing a Firewise project right next door. Have you guys considered getting that Firewise in terms of reducing fuels in that area? Because I took a look at it and it could use a little cleanup, like a little. You should maybe call the fire department to do a free Firewise fuels reduction analysis for that place. I mean, you have some pretty significant acreage. It's not near any structures, but I don't know if you want, you don't want that to contribute to a crowning fire if a fire in that area. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. So, and I'm doing the next door property this week, so I'd be glad to give you guys my opinion on it, but it's good to have the fire department an objective group because there may be a conflict.
Good thought.
Thank you. Yeah. And then quickly on page 1, I saw the grant thing going on that we talked about, and it says staff, right? Grant administration, page 1, down by the bottom.
That's me, all by myself.
Yeah, that's my point, is that you got a lot of balls in here. And I think might be still worth considering part-time or contractual grant writer to just make an assessment saying, what grants are available to our city in our places of need? And would it be worth contracting somebody to write those grants beyond our staff capacity, which I think is at capacity?
And I'm not writing grants.
Right, that's my
I'm
point.
managing them after we
Advantage of
have
it.
them.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
Anna went out of her way to write that grant for Kim Schreier and it came, but that being said, I think there's a lot of potential grants that we're missing out on, and it might be worth just taking a good experienced grant person to say, what grants are out there that we could get? Come back with a quick report saying, are these worth going after? And what's our potential take on? That would be feasibility to say, is it feasible for us to get more grants if we hired somebody and would they pay for themselves in that sense? So when I talk about grant administration, which is the work of administering the grant, I'm saying looking for grants with somebody who actually does a good job, somebody to take that off the Tom's plate. You guys look for your own grants, right?
Well, we also contract.
We contract for a lot of-
With the Duras to do the Safe Streets for All, they put that federal application together for us.
So if we had somebody who had a broad scope of understanding of grant writing and could say, here's what the city qualifies for and would be potentially low-hanging fruit and accessible to the city in terms of grants, like the Home for Alice and stuff I don't even know, but I do know grant writers are able to find money everywhere.
Right.
So, and here's the thing is when you got a project, you go after grants. And there are lots of opportunities and lots of people who know that sphere of what you're going for, and you contract and get them going and searching. Just to say willy-nilly looking for a grant and then we'll find a project is the backwards way of doing it. When we know we got a project, you go after grants, and we contract with a lot of the engineering firms, if we're doing it around those kind of things. Well, go after them because they're working with them all the time. So
And I agree with that, but like we have projects already that don't have grants, for instance, this aquatic center. What if we said, hey, Mr. Grant, Mrs. Grant Writer, could you look for grants for us for this type of thing? And just,
We can't apply for them without an actual project.
yeah, we need
I
to
get that, but like,
That's what.
look, if they're available,
Place
that
for
could,
hours.
that could then figure into our budgetary assessment. In other words, I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but say, hey, look, we have these projects we're seriously thinking about. Shouldn't we be considering grants for these? Because if I was, had a business and had potential for grant, I'd consider that as part of my funding. Assuming if I had a good grant writer, I'd be getting somewhere. So that's just a question. So the other thing, I wanted to ask you, Tom, really quick about the wastewater funding awarded this month on page 4. That said, that's supposed to come in this month. So up at the top, it says
That's correct. Yeah, that's for, so we've received a 50% loan, 50% forgivable principal grant for a general wastewater, general sewer plant update.
because on page 10, it talks about capacity analysis. And this also talks about capacity analysis, and that was for future growth. And I think that was a big part of why we're actually buying the car wash, or why we're considering buying the car wash. So I just wanted to know if are those two things connected? And when are we going to get a real number in terms of, not from you, but from them? When are we going to get a real number in terms of what our ultimate sewer wastewater capacity is going to be once Leavenworth is reasonably saturated? Like once we've kind of plateaued and grown.
So this general sewer plant update will take about a year to complete. Because
Okay.
It's a full meal deal. We're gonna video and inspect every stretch of sewer and also develop a plan. However, we're also getting ahead of this with the Ray Osborne doing a capacity analysis of the wastewater plant right now, but that's just existing capacity and identifying our limiting factors.
So they're just taking a snapshot of where we are.
Right, and the more
It's-
long-term will be with the general sewer plant.
And when is that going to be done?
So we received funding, but we don't have an agreement yet with ecology. That could take some time.
The RFQ.
So we haven't started the general sewer
RFP,
plant.
sorry, yeah. Yeah, okay, because I'm just curious, because I think having that number or that data of how much we're going to need for the next 20 years, what's going to be our 20-year need for wastewater capacity?
Right, and that's part of the sewer plant.
Okay, good. That was just something that came up. So the only other two things I wrote down was the Osborne playground and library build out. What was the date on what percentage are we at with the playground at Osborne?
The neighborhood playground committee met for the first time last Thursday,
Okay.
so
And we have funding.
0%.
Oh, we have funding for that?
But we could use our ARPA funds for that.
Okay, good. Awesome, cool. I just have had a lot of people ask me about that and that
Yeah.
stuck out.
And then I think I wrote in here as an update, ARC Architects is working on some concept to show the community what a partial demolition would look like.
Okay,
So that'll show both exterior and interior views of a 12,000 square foot building that would incorporate the library and community center space.
yeah, that was part of the community center and the library was a lot of people have talked to me about that. And I didn't really have any information, so that's good to know.
We'll have that at the picnic.
Yeah, that'll be ready for the bottle party in August.
Yeah, so the other question I have is, I only have two more, is the Rick Williams parking study, where are we at with the parking garage? It just has a lot of zeros next to it, and I was curious what the.
They haven't started yet. We're in the data collection phase right now.
Okay, and what's their prediction in terms of being done? The parking study?
Oh, it was a year from when we signed the paperwork.
Okay.
So next spring.
Okay, that's cool. And the only last thing I want in terms of this, which wasn't even on here, but it came up at the retreat, was I would like to add the development of a recreation level of service. So how would we start that? Because I think we brought that up, right, Lilith? She's smiling. So here's Marco and his recreation.
You're
muted.
muted.
I want to hear you.
Can't hear ya.
She's like, you don't need to say anything. I know what you're thinking.
She's talking to
No.
somebody.
I was talking to my husband and my sister are here.
Okay, sorry.
But in any case, no, thank you, Marco. Thank you, Sharon. Those great questions. I really like going through the permit tracker, especially since I have less projects on it now. So, any case, this time is provided to kind of walk through administrative decisions. And my sister was struggling because city council meetings seemed rather boring to her. I said, well, wait until you get to my presentation.
No,
No, sorry.
he was asking before we get to that. He was asking for a recreation standards.
A level of service.
Level of service.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanted more information on that. Okay.
How do we develop?
They get developed, we use a consultant who specializes in park planning, is the ideal. And they do surveys. They also know the national and state standards. The state RCO, I think they've changed their name now, Recreation Conservation Group. But anyway, the state provides a lot of information of what the standards should be. And we just look to see what fits with our community. And we establish those, and it's a planning process similar to the comprehensive plan update. So the more people who participate, the better the document ends up being. It can be rather shallow. In other words, you could just set your standards of here's what you want, or you could do more aggressive planning and talk about what goes where and what details people want in specific parks. So you could use it as an opportunity to dig pretty deep into individual parks as well. And finally, you might want to expand that type of planning effort to look at cost estimates for those projects, cost estimates for staffing. It has been in the comprehensive plan for several decades to have a recreation parks department.
Right.
So you could include that into the study. So you could make it a pretty deep study or a pretty shallow study. It'd be important to think about what and why you're doing it. So a lot of background discussions would be recommended to make sure we've got a strong base of objectives before we go out for an RFP on that.
Yeah, I think it's something that is demanded by the public and would be supported by the 2021 recreational needs assessment. Because that incorporates Leavenworth, it's PRSA, it's bigger, but I think there's a general demand for that within the public. So I think it'd be good to assess the public and say, hey, do you guys want a level of service? And this is what that means. So that might be a great first step.
I'm hearing community center at the pool, and I'm hearing community with the pool. I'm hearing community center at Osborne. Are we thinking of split community center? Are we putting together a community center?
So I think there's this understanding that it's more of a recreation center at the pool.
Okay,
And what I heard from the Bob Stowe materials that I read was people wanted a not a recreation center, they wanted a community center.
Yeah.
Classrooms, places where they can do arts and crafts, people where someone can hold a yoga class or a Pilates class, because it's different than, when I heard it, when I read through the materials, it seemed like they wanted something that Twist has. Twist has an old high school that the school district leases to a nonprofit. The nonprofit organization runs the Twist Community Center, and they sublease out rooms to private entities to have violin lessons, piano lessons, jujitsu, yoga, etc. So they're using all the old classrooms in that old building for private enterprise through a nonprofit organization that is the Twist Community Center. As I was reading through the Bob Stone materials, that's what I seen. That's what it seemed to me that the community was saying they wanted in a community center, not a recreation community center. Because when I think about a community center, I think about a pool and a gym and a climbing wall and an indoor track and basically the Yakima YMCA Aquatic Center. That's what I think of.
Yeah.
But other people think of other things when they see community center. And one of the things that I saw was we want a commercial kitchen. We want rooms, multifunction rooms. And that's something that I think the Osborne can provide because we already have a building there.
Okay, that was what they were pushing. That's what Anna was Stoltz, whatever his last name. That's what they were pushing, the Twist Community Center. And I call up there and talk to plenty of people up there. And that, I guess that would not be what I would be interested in seeing.
Conversation.
But to me, that's not a community center. A community center is where the community goes, more like the Croc Center in Coeur d'Alene. That would be beautiful. That is just awesome. But and it's everything is for just public. It's not for people to make money teaching violin lessons or whatever. Yeah, it's not a home for that.
Right.
So anyway, I just was kind of confused as where we were going, what direction in two places.
All right. Now, is that it?
I'm done. Thank you.
Anybody else? We've got a
Gotta
little
think
bit
of
of time for administrative decision process. Well,
Oh, how much time do we have? And I'll hit the highlights.
10 minutes.
10, 15 minutes. We don't have a ton that we got to do after that. So
Well, okay. So the purpose of this presentation was to review how decisions, administrative decisions are made. So Andrea, do you have the presentation you can pull? Or should I just put it up on my screen?
It would be easier if you did it on your screen.
Okay, let's do
I have a
that.
hard time sharing screen.
Let's see how it goes. So it's in tab E of your packet. I've divided it up into 5 sections. And this was a rather hastily put together presentation. So there's more words than I normally would put in a presentation, but it may serve as a reference point for you in the future. The administrators include myself, the city administrator, of course, public works director, and then any of us can also have a designee, somebody we say, we need you to make these decisions. And what type of decisions do administrators make? There's essentially 2 types of decisions: limited review decisions and full administrative decisions. The limited review are ones that don't need to be noticed to surrounding property owners or to other agencies or departments. Not that you can't do it, but it's not required. So if you need to get input from other agencies, of course you would and should, even if it's a limited review, reach out and get the support you need for a decision. But again, not required. And these include things like the AI's administrative interpretations. I know that was a particular question. It also includes things like minor building permits, family, like for single family homes, and boundary line adjustments. And then the full administrative decisions are a little more complex, and a short plat falls into that category. Binding site plans, shoreline permits. These type of permits do require agency review and public notice. So that all occurs with the full administrative review. Large commercial projects that require SEPA do a full administrative review. That review can occur with a standalone SEPA, which is the state environmental review. And if they've done a full administrative review on a related permit, like say the SEPA, when they come in for the building permit, then it's not double dipping. We switch from the full to the limited. You only get one opportunity for the public comment on a project, and that's what happened with Leavenworth House, or the Leavenworth Meadows multifamily development. The big review was done with the SEPA, and now we have the building permits coming in, and we're just going to look for compliance with that SEPA as well as all the other regulations. I know there were questions about the administrative deviation as well. So that is covered in chapter 18.04 general provisions. And this little section of code allows for an administrator to make a 10% change to the adopted standards. And that standards are defined as setback, length, width, depth, and area. Anything that incorporates those issues can be deviated up to 10% when the administrator finds that it's consistent with the intent of the code and the intent of the comprehensive plan. You'll notice in the code here, it says height 2, but as I've made that commitment to the city council, we are not deviating height in residential areas. With commercial projects, we may still consider that. And that was all discussed as part of our height review. And we need to come back and do the cleanup of the code now here and remove it or redefine it, height in residential versus commercial, and finish that process. So that's one of those low-hanging fruit code amendments that you will be seeing as we move forward. So those are the type of permits and how different permits relate to each other. You can process the permits separately, like I was mentioning with the SEPA versus a building permit, but you can also combine all your permits into one and review them all at one time. And so that has occurred less often, but it has occurred. For example, the Garten Haus building permit, we asked the hearing examiner to review that because that was a public project and we wanted to make sure that the public had input on it. So we bumped it up from a full administrative review to a quasi judicial, just to make sure it was more publicly reviewed. So that's the next part of the presentation here. When we consolidate, it'll always go to the highest level of review. If one of the permits required, say, city council approval, and they decided to consolidate them, then the whole package would all go to city council for review. So that's something to keep in mind. Most things only jump up to the hearing examiner. So where does processing administrative permits start? The biggest part of our project's review is with the pre-application meetings. These are optional meetings at the discretion of myself as the community development director. I do require them for all commercial projects because they are so complex. And it gives us as city departments an opportunity to sit down and walk through them before they actually apply and vet out some of the concepts. The other thing that happens a lot in Leavenworth is builders, whether they're highly experienced or not, they come to Leavenworth and they just don't understand the complexity of the design review board. And so pre-application meetings really give a good opportunity to vet that out on commercial projects. But we also use pre-application meetings for simple projects like a single family residential home. There are a few times a year where we just have somebody who's building a home and never has done it before. Even if they have a contractor, they're nervous about it. And it's an opportunity to sit down and talk to them about the process, alleviate any fears and concerns, and lay out some expectations, particularly along timelines, which always impact the budget. So there's a lot of cons on pre-application meetings. The city council many years ago opted to make them free. So they do cost the city quite a bit. The more complex ones in particular, just in staff time to prepare, to attend, and then afterwards we provide a written summary. So that can be thousands of dollars worth of staff time. But overall, I'm not gonna be requesting that we do that as a pass-through cost to the applicant, because I do find that they are so valuable and people appreciate just an opportunity to sit down and talk. And because there's no charge related to it, it gives us the freedom to set them up for even the simplest of projects, which is where most people need to sit down and talk and alleviate concerns about development. So after an application is submitted, let me check my time. They're reviewed for completeness. Under state law, we have a certain set amount of time to do that, 28 days. If they're incomplete, we have to provide the applicant a written notice of what's missing and a timeline for them to get it back to us. If they don't get it back to us, essentially their fees they've submitted, everything just is voided out. There's no refund unless they ask within a specific time frame. But completed applications start to move forward. Once they're determined complete, we have 2 weeks to get them noticed in the newspaper, on site, and we do post at City Hall. We'll also forward that noticing on to surrounding property owners when we need to, and off to other agencies for their comment and review. The applications are reviewed based on the criteria in the code. So this is a big ticket item. If you think we're missing something, let's look and talk about criteria and what might need to be adjusted. And I think we're doing that right now with the building B&B density discussion. If there is something missing, how do we tweak it and get it in there? And some people get really upset that that's not addressed, or how could it have been missed? But it's very common. Code amendments that happen in jurisdictions on a very regular basis, because you don't always think of everything the first time through, or things change and new items come up and public concerns come up as development occurs. So don't feel bad if you have to amend your code or want to change it. It's part of the process. I did put a note in here that we can't ask for more than the code requires unless SEPA identifies a deficiency that requires mitigation. And ideally, it's something that's already defined in another place, such as our comprehensive plan, and we can use that to trigger the requirements. For the Leavenworth Meadows Apartments, that's how we got the road dedication from Titus to Chumstick. That dedication hasn't fully come through yet, but it's showing on all the plans. The developers agreed to it, and we will be working on finalizing that with the building permits as they start to come through. But if that extension road hadn't been in the comprehensive plan, I really wouldn't have had a clear trigger to say, hey, we need this, and it's something the community wants. It would have just been hot air. And so the other thing that you balance with mitigation is it has to be proportional to the development. The old case law that they taught in school was a building permit for a single family home and the city was requiring 5 foot or maybe more access through their property to the beach. And they ended up going all the way to the highest courts, and the determination was, hey, that's not proportional. They just want to build a house to live in, and you're taking this much of their land for a public purpose. We get opportunity for land dedications more often with subdivision because the proportional benefit is greater to the developer. So these are kind of complex concepts and ideas, so don't feel bad if it's making your head spin. We can chat about it offline as well. Are there other things that affect a decision? Yes, community comment. It does. We'd like to be able to incorporate community comment more. If it's in the comprehensive plan, like I said, that makes it easier. But we do need to have those adopted level of services, which is what Marco was talking about, and something we talked about on the prior presentation. And so I included the level of service adopted standards in this document. What happens after a decision is made? We do a notice of decision and people can appeal it.
So, well, just to go back to the level of service, when you mentioned this at the retreat, you're talking about a recreation level of service that does not exist here. From what I understand from your presentation and again here is that, let's say the Jordan McDevitt 70 lot subdivision. If we had in our standards that for every 50 lots you build, you have to build a playground, that would be a recreation level of service.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it could be a playground. The easier ones to identify are for so many people of your population, you have X number of ball fields. And for Leavenworth, I know there's been a lot of hot topic about not having enough ball fields, not having enough soccer fields. But even just open space can be considered a park rec area, and we could define that more specifically. What happens after a decision is made? We touched on that. What's the review timeline? I just put together a quick little slide. We have 120 days to review permits and get them out the door with their decision. There are some caveats and some opportunities to stop the clock from ticking for both the city side and the applicant side. But we do, as a city of Leavenworth, we exceed the standard on a very regular basis. And I can't think of the last time we actually failed to get a permit out in time. We're generally ahead of the time clock, which makes us a desirable city to work with because that predictability and accountability helps everybody balance their checkbooks and budget their projects. Nothing like buying a piece of land and hoping you can get it subdivided or built on, even just with a single family home in a reasonable timeline versus say Seattle, where it takes 2 years to get a residential building permit. You know, there's a lot of money going out in the meantime. So that predictability helps Leavenworth be successful in its developments. That's my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks, Lowell.
Thanks, Lilith.
Yeah.
All right.
This is available on the website, correct?
Yeah, it's in the packet materials.
Oh yeah, because a lot of people always ask me why these types of things are so complicated. I'm like, the information should all be there.
Well, do you think it might
hard to
be
navigate.
worthwhile to add this to the document
That's
portal
a problem.
somewhere?
That's why I asked for this, because
Okay,
you
good.
get on the website.
No one's gonna find it.
It's hard to
in
find
the
it.
It's hard to find it and
Yeah,
it's
I
really.
mean, it's in our
hard to navigate.
packet, but you have to know that it's in this.
Right,
packet.
yeah.
Okay.
And under this, like, you have to go search for Title 21, not just administrative.
That's why we're asking is if
Yeah,
it could, if it could be in a
it's hard
more.
to navigate on the website.
The final page that says full administrative review for applications, that whole chart that was put together before I even got here, we've just tweaked it a little.
Right.
We definitely could put that on our community development page.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a note to do that.
Thank you, Cody.
Okay,
Oh, Liz, I had a question for you. When I had that question about the B and Bs, you said something was on the compliance page of the web, the city's compliance page, and I couldn't figure out what that was.
I know, I have to say, our city web pages are a little challenging. We do have a code compliance page, so I have to go through the search function and I put in short-term rental, and then it gives me the link to the compliance page.
Oh, so that's the
I can,
word.
and that
Okay.
was to find the phone number to call in any concerns for short-term rentals. That, so everybody knows what we're talking about, Zeke.
Yeah, okay, so if I want to find that again, whatever, it's just short-term rentals search that'll put me where I need. Okay,
Yes, and I will, I'll write a note to send it to you as well.
okay, thank you.
okay. Future items, we know we've added the recreational service level. Anything else real quick before we take a break?
Yeah, so Selby, I guess we're still in process trying to figure out that what you and I have talked about as far as putting together a,
Yeah, I'm not hopeful it'll coalesce by this summer, given,
We're already in the season.
people trying to get a hold of people.
yeah, and US Forest Service hasn't gotten back to me, and I emailed them immediately after our meeting 2 weeks ago. And emergency management, I reached out to Sergeant Reinfeld yesterday. He's leading one tomorrow at Pipes, so
That's on Thursday, right?
Thursday, sorry.
Thursday.
Thursday at Pipes.
Yeah, you can try to get to that one if you want. I don't know why we can't get it streamed up here.
Well, I reached out to Mike Kennedy and he said he would look into it, but he hasn't gotten back to me either, but. I mean,
It is
I don't know
something
if it's
good,
helpful to live stream something that we can't even advertise until.
Right.
Before,
because it's showing up at the fire hall at Chelan, that's why people are going there.
correct, or they're going to.
Or to
Pipes.
Pybus.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's a half hour or an hour drive for us at this point. I don't know why they didn't think about us.
I would think
Okay.
might be a consideration.
Couple of minute break. Let's go.
Okay. We even have an executive session to go to.
Oh, yeah. We do have an executive session.
We do.
20 minutes.
Yeah, it won't take a
Yeah,
while.
maybe.
Are we
down?
Are we
I'm
recording?
hoping for.
Oh, yeah.
People will
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna shoot.
I call the meeting to order for Leavenworth City Council for July 11th. Please stand for the pledge.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hold on.
I see our third flag up
You
there.
see the other flag?
Yeah, Leavenworth flag, yeah.
The Leavenworth flag. All right, roll call.
Sharon Waters.
Jason Lundgren.
Ann Hesberg.
Zeke Reister, Marco Aurelio.
Tibor left.
Just to note that Clint Strand is not here, so he'll absent. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Jason, seconded by Tibor. All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. Comments from the public on anything not on our agenda? Online, I'm not seeing. All right, we're gonna move on. Resolutions, ordinance, orders. Action item number 9, ordinance 1676, our quarterly budget amendment. Chantel.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Council, the budget amendment before you, majority of it is your council approved actions over the last quarter. As I noted in the write-up, there's 2 additional items in here specifically from staff. One was the project carryover for affordable housing. This is just one that I had missed when I did the project carryovers at the beginning of the year. And that was to help cover the building permit fees for the Bavarian Village apartments. That funding was coming from what was left over from the Garden House project complex. And then the ER&R fund, Sorry, I was like Joel and I, no, Tom and I. Tom and I have been watching it very closely. We've known that it's been under budgeted, so. I told him I would bring you a balancing budget for the ER&R fund. Quite a bit of it has to do with just not knowing how we were going to be affected by the capacity building of public works staffing in particular. And then another major piece that we've noticed now that we have our new mechanic on board was just a lack of things that had not been on hand, stock on hand. So he did a lot of purchasing to stock up all of his little tools and parts and everything he needs. So when a vehicle or large piece of equipment rolls in and needs repairs, he's got everything right there on hand. He doesn't have to wait a few weeks to get stuff. The good news about all of the ER&R is that I did budget for the new equipment debt service payments, which will not start till 2024. So that did take the brunt of all of the increase, and actually we're coming up a little positive with an increase to the ending fund balance of 23,000 in that fund. Are there any questions?
No.
Questions? I'd entertain a motion.
The Leavenworth City Council moves to adopt ordinance 1676 quarterly budget amendment.
Second.
Moved by Zeke, seconded by Ann. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, let me hear your hand. Passes unanimously. Resolution 08-2023 interlocal agreement for AWC Employee Assistance Program, also Shantown. This is the one we talked about last time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, last meeting I mentioned that I was going to be bringing this forward to you. We are moving forward with the program. This is a solidification of that move forward by having you approve the resolution that includes the interlocal agreement with the Association of Washington Cities. As I noted in my write-up, this is an EAP or Employee Assistance Program. And it does in total cost less than $1,000 per year for all of our employees, their dependents, and anyone else who lives in their household to utilize the service. So
What sort of additional benefits are associated with this program?
quite a bit. So
It's like life insurance and medical.
No, this is more
I thought much of insurance.
counseling.
Legal help.
all counseling, legal help, the legal and financial help piece, lots of different things included in that, but some that, were very interesting to folks. Putting a will together, putting a trust together. So they will provide the assistance and the help and the guidance of how to go through it and do it. They also provide portions of it at low cost. So for instance, they said that putting just the basic will together will cost the employee $10 through their program. So it's fairly cheap, and it has all these other resources. And there was so many. Do you guys remember anything that?
There's like health coaching and wellness coaching, dietary coaching type of stuff.
We've been on a vacation.
For the colleagues.
Right. Right, they'll help you plan like big events in your life. So you want to plan your wedding, but you don't even know where to start. They'll
Yeah.
find someone on their
It's
team
crazy
that
how
knows how to do
broad
that.
they
and they'll
gotta
help
help
you.
you.
Is that just for the union employees?
No,
For everyone,
We-
even us?
we did it for all full-time employees.
All full-time?
So we did not include seasonal.
Okay, at no cost to the city.
It's $1,000 cost. The city's
Total.
picking it up to, $1,000 per year.
For the whole thing, not $1,000 for each employee.
$1,000 to cover
So who's
everybody.
taking care of that? Where that money coming from?
It's gonna come out of our existing budget.
No, I don't mean 1,000. I mean, it's gonna cost the employees $10 to do a will. I know that doing a will is a lot more than that.
Oh,
So where's that coming from?
it comes out of the AWC pool.
AWC pool. Association of Washington
Okay,
Cities,
yeah.
it's a program of theirs.
And do we put money in the pool?
Nope.
No.
No, we just buy the EAP.
Crazy.
I know,
You sound like 2023.
I know.
Yeah, so the EAP is one extra piece to a whole gamut of programs that AWC offers, including medical, dental, and vision.
Mhm.
But their medical, dental, vision plans compared to our medical, dental, vision plans, cost-wise for the city, we'd have to add about $100,000 a year to our benefit package for our employees to have their medical
That's
benefit.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
they're making all this money over here on these other things, and that EAP is just a little tiny piece, and we are able to partner with them because we are partners with AWC in different areas.
And we can't sneak in there as council people.
Well, if you sleep on my couch one night, then I can cover you.
Yeah, because it covers everybody in the household. It does.
And so is that grandma, grandpa,
Yeah,
cousin,
if they're
anybody?
home
If they're
with
in the home.
employee, they
Okay.
can access the benefit.
How long do you have to be in their home?
They don't specify.
So can I go stay the night with Rick?
That's what we're hearing.
If you got his wife's permission.
I don't mean with Jim, I just mean in his house.
All right.
I know.
Yeah.
So is this part of the Aflac thing you were talking about too? Is that a separate?
Aflac is a separate one.
Separate thing, okay, but I know they-
Also started, but that one is employee paid only.
Okay,
So
yeah,
if they
Aflac is,
choose to use it, they join and they pay their dues for whatever it is that they want to purchase.
Aflac's more like a MERP, a medical expense reimbursement.
It is, it supplants different things, so
Okay.
all of our full-time employees have medical, dental, vision coverage, but Aflac will cover other things.
I get it.
But they can also buy additional writers for their dental, so for instance, orthodontics are not covered
Right.
by the medical, dental, vision plan.
And that's this plan you're
They
talking
can buy
about.
Aflac for $40
Yeah,
a
yeah,
month.
and I
and they
had it when
can
I was a
have the
firefighter.
writer.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, no, I was just curious if it was related or not, but no, this is great. So
Yeah.
we're saving money and they're saving. Yeah.
Right, the reason this is before you is one, we needed to approve the agreement with them.
Yeah.
And two, we as the employer are paying this bill.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's something
we
that we have
wanted to
to
make
vote
sure
on.
that that was clear and upfront.
No, that's totally clear because it's us spending money that we
Yeah.
need to think about. But it sounds like it's an overall benefit for us. and for them.
Yes.
And the quality of the insurance in terms of the payout and what they cover and all that stuff is really good in terms of like,
For our current existing medical.
yeah, how does it
dental vision,
compare? Yeah.
I think we have a pretty darn good plan.
So is this an upgrade is what I'm asking?
Oh, no, this is an addition.
In addition, this
This is
isn't,
an
this is a total
additional.
addition.
Okay.
Added benefits.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not medical.
Yeah.
Our existing plan didn't have a true EAP program portion to it.
Okay.
So we went outside looking for something to offer for our employees. There was a pretty significant need over the last several years for counseling type of services.
Right. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Whether you're going through divorce or you're just stressed out or you're having depression, suicidal thoughts, you know, all these different things. And COVID was a great contributor to the increase in people's anxiety levels.
Totally. No, I think it's great. You know, the sheriff's put in their behavioral health unit. So that's a clear indicator that we need more resources in that area. So thank you.
I'd entertain a motion.
The Leavenworth City Council moves to approve Resolution 08-2023, approving an association of Washington cities employee assistance program and interlocal agreement.
Second,
Moved by Marco, seconded by Zeke. Any other questions? All in favor? Let me see your hand. Unanimous. All right, now a little workshop on the multifamily tax exemption. Willa.
All right, thank you so much. In your packet, we provided handouts, but this topic was reviewed 1 year ago with the city council. We had Dina Walter come from the assessor's office and she talked to the city council about the tax ramifications and all that they may be to our residents, in particular our commercial core. And then of interest at last year's discussions was potential impacts to the fire district or anyone doing a lid lift, and just needing to make sure that they did the lid lift in a timely manner so that they didn't miss an opportunity for taxes otherwise. So that is also in your packet. So you have 2 pages of documents from Department of Commerce. What is a multifamily tax exemption and what is a tax shift? Let me start from the beginning to refresh everybody's mind. Multifamily tax exemption is for any developer who develops 4 or more units multifamily units in a designated area of the community. Now, when they make those units affordable for low income, when they make them for a specific period of time or for sale, could be rent or for sale, depending on the type of program. There's an 8-year program, a 12-year program, and a 20-year program, and there's also an option for an extension. So it's a complex program. The city of Leavenworth has some limitations in which program we can use, and I noted that on the 3rd page of the handout where it says multifamily tax exemption program. This is a write-up that we walked through not only with the housing committee when it was in existence, but also the planning commission. In April, we were putting this on their docket. Now they haven't gotten to it because they've been preoccupied with multiple options for bed and breakfast. But when we do get an opportunity, we will bring it to them. What we're looking at right now is some council members and the mayor feel like this needs to be fast tracked. So we're bringing it to you to talk about more. I included in this packet the actual draft code that we presented to the housing committee. Some of the options have been resolved, so they're not exactly the same as the housing committee packet, but it's close. And the idea would be, if you guys are in favor of this program, we should walk through it in detail, then send it to the planning commission, at least for defining the area, I believe. But right now it's proposed for a Title III, and Title III does not require planning commission review, but they do provide the best opportunity for public engagement with the planning commission. But having said that, it can all be done through the city council as well. So seeking a couple of different things.
Can we time out for a second, Lilith?
Yeah.
Title III, I'm sorry. What, can you explain Title III? I'm sorry if I.
Well, like Title 18 is zoning, Title III is finance.
Okay.
So this is where we have our grant programs and other finance issues.
Okay.
And this being a code infecting taxes, it would fit best in Title III. But in case, I'm seeking a couple of things from the city council through this workshop. One, we really need to get, does the majority of the council want this program enacted? And last year when we talked, that really wasn't as clear. And that's why it hadn't moved forward, but I put it on the docket for the planning commission. And I guess I misstate that. Let me restate that. The city council wanted it to move forward, but with the planning commission, and now the planning commission has been busy with other items. So do you want it to move forward with just the city council? And if you do, we'll just start walking through it and discuss it in more detail. So maybe first we can open the discussion about review with the city council. Are you guys feeling comfortable reviewing this?
Actually, we should know about this, but
I have to state up front, unless there's a way to have it be exempted, I'm not going to be in favor of it. And I think this is something that it's going to affect everybody that has a home in Leavenworth, and I think that they needed to be included in this decision.
Well, we would definitely have a
Property
public
tax.
hearing with the city council.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to state that.
Right.
Not in
This
favor.
is just to see whether we even want to start down that path, basically.
Yeah.
so my question would be, Lilith, if we moved ahead with this, this is always optional to pull the trigger on, right? It isn't just like a standard procedure thing. It's like we could do it, or I mean, if we figured this is one of our tools, we could use it or we could not use it, right?
Once we adopt it, it's in place and the developer gets to decide if they use it. Having said that, there is a section in the draft code that says each individual potential project is reviewed by the city council and approved at the city council level. So yes, it's a tool in your toolbox. The developers get to decide if they want to request it. And then there could be an option for city council to say, we agree with this one or we don't. And that's when they do kind of a feasibility assessment to see where those tax impacts are. Does that make sense?
Well, sort of, so. Let me put it this way. So if we have a project, say it's the Widener thing, right? It's going in now.
Mhm.
And we decide we'd like to enact this with the Widener, like they would build so many percentages of affordable housing in exchange for relief on their property tax for those residences. Could we say, this is how this has been, can we enact, when the project is that far along the way it is now, can we still use this with them? Retroactive. Yeah.
Yeah, this is different because they're opting in that it's not inclusionary. We have to have it because we're demanding it. So that's a little different. That's where we can't do inclusion, and that's why that's still, we're going to talk about it, but it can't be applied retroactively because that's a demand.
But
This one is an opt-in. So they're still
Opt-in
not
from the developer.
from the developer.
Well, because it's.
They're going to get the tax break, right?
Yeah.
They're getting something as well. So that's why it's still an option. They expressed, Lilith and I had a conversation, well, it's been over a year now, so
Mhm.
that they would be open to participating if we had a program.
Okay.
So that's what started the conversation, was because we could, this is new, that we
Right.
could, as a small city, be able to do this. So then, what we would need, and again, before this whole thing would come down, is again, what the value is that gets spread out and what that means to the other properties and all of that, that's hard to know until you know exactly what participation level we're, offering it at and all of those things. So, yeah, but so the question at this point is not enacting, it's just in this draft form, because there's a lot of decisions
Right.
in terms of how many, what percentage of affordable you want and, which,
And the impact on your fire district and your hospital.
yeah, and
Yeah.
all of those
Yeah.
pieces that are addressed in here and have to be looked at carefully. So it would still be a process. The question was, again, there was talk about trying to move something more quickly than that we could use now. This was the one piece that we could use now. And that's what precipitated, bringing it here to say, do we want to? It is still on the planning commission's docket and it could stay there, but we've asked them to do some other things and, so anyway.
Okay.
Well, I have a couple questions, not sure if you know the answer. Do the city residents have to come up with the loss to the fire and the hospital?
No.
So how does that shift get absorbed?
Yeah, that according to our previous assessor is just lost revenue. And it's based on if they did a levy lift or if they have one pending. And what they might lose. The shift is the standard taxes. And I think as Dina explained it, it was based on how they collect those taxes. So that's.
And I guess my other question is, would there be a way to adopt this but include an opt-in exemption for seniors?
For taxes, no, we don't change the taxing collection status through this program. This program is just a tax exemption. If I'm hearing you correctly, that would be more of a state legislature process.
Thank you.
So the other, not that we want to consider this, but the other option is to just for us to lose it too, rather than spread it. Right?
Oh, good question. No, I don't know the answer to that, Mayor.
You explain that?
That was my understanding is we could just forego the taxes that would be collected for those units. rather than spreading them. That was my understanding, that was an option given that cities never take. But
Yeah,
Oh.
that's in the Department of Commerce.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's under what is tax shift, and it gives the two ways of distributing.
Oh,
This-
I see it. Yeah.
You either forego your tax revenue or you shift the tax obligation.
That's what I thought that said.
Yeah, I thought the shift was mandated. I didn't think you could forego the revenue.
and again, you know.
Forego most of all the accepted tax revenue.
Well, you know, when we think about how much money it costs to build these units, we wouldn't be able to build them.
Well, that's what I'm
As a
saying, it's a
city,
fairly
so-
cheap way to get some affordable units.
And if you do 20 years, if you do a 20-year exemption, they could be perpetually, or they can be affordable for 99 years.
Yes.
I feel it's a slap in the face to ask a property owner to pay somebody else's taxes.
Well, we're talking about
We're
foregoing
just,
it rather than.
we can
shifting.
foregoing it.
foregoing it. And then
As a
we,
city.
it would be like us investing in units,
Right,
but cheaper than we could build units.
exactly. The money we don't collect in taxes, whatever that is what's gonna build those units.
Well, and it's just the tax associated with the residences. It's, we
Yes.
still collect on commercial and land taxes.
And all the other ones that aren't. It's only the affordable units that you're not collecting.
Right.
So if somebody builds 50 units and you lose 4, let's say you lose the 20 grand a year. You'd probably make up half that in the new units anyways.
Right.
Right.
Half of it is what-
Because you're adding
Because you're
46
adding,
new
you're
units.
adding 45 or.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So-
You're still at, right, adding
So
other
you're,
new
I mean,
units.
it's, the shift would be in-house. Technically.
Right,
because
it's not to the
we-
taxpayers.
It's not the taxpayer. I mean, that's sellable to me.
Yeah.
To say to somebody else that. You know, we want you to build a pool, we want you to pay somebody else's taxes, it just ends up being a pile.
But we also can't build affordable housing ourselves as a
Yeah.
municipality, as affordably as a developer.
No,
So
and
there's
there's
savings in that.
That's what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
if we give up the 20, we would pick up close, a lot more of that out of 50 more units.
Well, and like Selby said, I mean, we could do this for 20 years and get it perpetually affordable.
Correct.
And which is what we would like
Mhm.
versus, again, short-term tax exemption.
But they would increase annually by a COLA, right?
Well, but nobody's forced to take it or do it.
Right.
That's the best part.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, we're not forcing anybody. They can opt in. and we
Voluntary.
can-
And they get the benefit annually with the tax break.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't say it, but my understanding, so with the foregone. I.e., we would reduce our total revenues for the city, so each year when we request our amount, we would lower it by whatever this ramification was, so that it didn't get spread. But when you do that, you normally create what's called the banked capacity. So that could be grabbed at a future date by another council member or another council.
Or once his exemption's gone, grab it.
They could do it at any time though, if it's banked capacity. That would be a question, Lilith, if you could ask Dina. Is it,
Yeah.
does it become banked capacity?
I
'Cause you
don't,
could
yeah.
have a turnover in council in 2 years and that entire council could decide, no, we need that money. They could grab that banked
It's probably a
capacity.
question for Wes now.
Yeah, Wes. Yeah, and from what I read, that wouldn't be a fit, but I'll ask the question. Just
Yeah.
to cover our bases.
Well, the other interesting piece that goes this is that there's a strong push, and I think it's gonna happen eventually, but to allow cities to raise by a COLA or maximum of 3% rather than 1%. There's so many communities, small communities, that they don't have a lot of sales tax. They don't have
Right.
shops, so most of their budget is their property tax, and when it only can be raised 1%, it's tough in small cities.
Our property taxes to over 500,000.
Huh?
Sir, what
Our property, our total property tax is,
About 700,000.
yeah,
700,000. It pays for our sheriff's contract.
not even.
No,
not even.
I thought it was close.
It was supposed to pay for the sheriff, but every year we lose it because theirs goes up by more than 1%.
3 to 5.
Yeah, 3 to 5.
So in the big picture, our property taxes are pretty small.
Small.
Insignificant part of the budget.
Yeah.
And this would be a micro fraction of that.
Yeah. It would be,
So the downsides really aren't many.
again, yeah, you're not foregoing a huge amount,
Yeah.
but you'd be getting, and again, if we set it at. If we did 10% of their units, we would get 30 affordable units. They're
And I
doing.
think that's all he said he was willing to do, but if we do the 20-year, it requires 25% of units.
Right.
Oh, does it?
But if you do the 12-year, and there's
Okay.
definitely a benefit for getting permanent affordability.
Right,
But that's also tied to the 80% AMI. If you do the 12-year, you could do the 115% AMI.
And you have 20% of units.
20% of units.
How many,
Anyway,
how many units is he willing to do?
you'd do 10% is what they talked
So
about.
30, right?
That's
30 units.
right. So if we could get 30 units, and again,
That doesn't seem like, it seems too good to be true that for 20, we're paying $20,000 a year on property tax. We're gonna get 30 units.
Yeah, but
No,
we're going to pay,
20,000 for 4 units.
Okay,
That's what
that's
this
more
is,
like-
but I don't even think that number's accurate because
yeah,
$5,000 on a unit is not accurate tax.
No,
right.
No, not at all.
No,
It's not even close,
well, depending on the size too.
but
and he doesn't have to keep it. When the 8 years are up, 10 years or whatever, he can not have affordable housing. He can go back and have regular
well,
rent.
that's why you want to do it as long as you can. And it's renewable too. So, I mean, if they're willing, if the owner's willing, it's going well.
The city loss of an annual of $20,000 was based on a $20 million development.
Oh.
And
Yes,
it
that's
was
That's just an
200,000,
true. It was 20 million.
it was,
$20 million. That's the units that are affordable, the units in the program. It's not the whole project. So if they're doing a mix, it's only those units that are in the program that go towards the tax shift.
So, and we were looking at those 30 units, what was it right around? He was thinking right around 180,000 value, assessed value per unit. Or,
Per unit.
I don't remember, he did share a ballpark with us, of course, this has been a while ago, things haven't gone down, but even if you figure 200 a unit would be what?
6 million almost.
6 million?
You think with, him putting the 200 in and now the 300, that as not a courtesy, I don't know what the word would be, to the city to put in some affordable housing, of some of the units being affordable. It's not going to be any
Developer.
You don't know that way.
Guess what?
No, so he's excited because we're going to pay his taxes.
Well, I'm saying that, guess what? Participation in a program like this is their idea of contributing to the community.
Oh, my gosh.
I know,
Don't
I'm
even
sorry,
go
but
there.
that's, well, I know, it's a different world. But again, yeah, because I don't think it purely pencils out for them. But so it is, it's an incentive for them to do something that they,
Yeah, but they can double dip on tax.
Yeah,
well, yeah, no, they've got their ways, I get it.
They do community pay my taxes.
Well, in Leavenworth, they're also not gonna have a hard time filling up these things.
I just,
No.
They'll
I
fill
think
right
it's
out. So
Well,
it's not even, it's
horrendous.
not like a marketability thing either.
horrendous.
In some places it would.
So the question is, do we want to spend the time and this, we're not doing it tonight, but do we want to put the time in as a council, or do we want to kick it back to planning commission, or what do we want to do?
I think we definitely need to keep this ball rolling in addition to make sure the ball keeps rolling on the inclusionary zoning. Because
Right.
as you said, we can't retroactively do it,
Right.
but let's make sure it's in place for the next.
Yeah, no, and that we can do, make sure that we don't see anything immediately that would apply to. So,
No, there isn't.
but that's
There's
what
one
I'm saying,
behind
but
the-
yeah, we don't want to lose it either.
I think we need
Kick
to
it.
do the math better.
Kick it as far as you can.
Kick it.
Uh,
Kick you?
No, kick it.
Lilith, where would you see us? I
Pay
don't
my
know if you can
taxes,
answer
pay
this
my
question.
extra taxes.
Where do you see us coming up with the inclusionary zoning ready to use as a tool? Are we months out on that or weeks out or?
Yeah, months. This one's months out too, but I mean, I will, if you, city council wants to hold the next workshop, I will ask you a few pointed questions today. And then I will work on drafting the code for the next workshop. So that's where this project lies. And then inclusionary zoning is on the study section. Is it next one, Selby or Andrea? I believe it.
It's next one. I think it's the first one in August.
August.
First one in August. So then we can talk about
We
inclusionary
did
zoning.
touch on that one fairly recently.
We have a community workshop on it.
Well, we will have at least one, if not two. And then, of course, there's always a public hearing before you adopt any changes. So that's true for both of these proposals.
Well, for myself, I think it's worth the time. My priority would be the inclusionary zoning, which is more straightforward, but can't be, but I guess I would say, yeah, we could staff spend some time putting this together.
Can we just pull every council member? Tibor, what's your thought?
I'd like to
If
see
you-
better. I would like to see better numbers, but I think it's worth keeping it alive.
And you wanted to run through the city council?
Yeah.
Okay. Marco, what's your thought?
I'd say move forward, like I said, Carl, I mean, run through city council. I do agree with Tibor about running the numbers, but I think the math is a lot. Do we have any options to modify this, or is this set in stone?
Legislation says.
The-
It's state law.
Yeah, okay.
It's
It's state law. I don't know what you want to modify.
There are options through this now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to pick and choose, because they give you several options, so you're gonna
The
want.
hiccup is the 25%.
Yeah.
That's the,
Right,
Oh, for the 20-year,
yeah,
for the longer one.
25.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can require more. But
Okay.
you'll get less participation is what cities have found. Okay, Anne, thank you, Zeke, for your comments. Anne?
I agree with Tibor. I think we need some better math. I think that that's going to help the community better understand what we're discussing. And will also help us have more dynamic conversation as to whether or not this is a good idea for us. I don't think that we have the data that we need to make a really good decision, but I would like to keep it alive. I agree with Zeke that I also think that inclusionary zoning needs to be a priority for us to move forward.
Thank you. Jason?
I don't have a unique perspective, but the thing I like about it is kind of the urgency and the opportunity that it could provide with a current large development. We don't have many of those left in our pocket. So I like the idea of moving quickly, and I like the idea of having a hypothetical scenario with something like the Widener build out to see what that looks like for the community.
that would be.
I'm really
And pencil it out.
concerned that
We should get something started.
or we're potentially missing large opportunities that aren't going to exist in a couple of years.
Has McDevitt offered an opinion on this?
This is a different type of application.
He's just developing the land lots and selling them, so that's a different, that doesn't
He's
apply
not
to this.
developing
Not to-
residences.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought I saw some plan that he was gonna put a bunch of stuff.
Well, it's,
I mean, we could always run it as a pilot, right? And try it once.
Yeah.
There's not gonna be a lot of developers clawing down our door to do this. If we did one significant project with this, it'd be a great study with a low risk and potentially high benefit.
Are there any good case studies in Seattle or
There's
what's
like 55.
No, there's lots going on.
Yeah,
I
there's
just saw
55 communities in Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I didn't read the
proven
whole-
program. Depending on the incentives and the length of affordability, it's really been successful in many communities. And that's in conflict with inclusionary zoning, which hasn't been as successful. So, but regardless, we could do both. And this can be for small developments too, because it's 4 units or more is only what the state law requires. So it doesn't have to be big projects. Okay, Sharon, we heard from you before. Did you have something more? How are you feeling?
I just did a pound on the same thing. I am opposed unless there's some kind of a way to, for an exemption. And I don't think we have the right to force the rest of the community, the rest of the property owners to pay someone else's taxes.
Well,
Yeah.
not shifting it.
Yeah.
We're talking about just not taking on those taxes.
To do have the city,
So
Take it behind it.
we just wouldn't gain the revenue just on those affordable units. We just wouldn't get that.
The city wouldn't
the
collect.
taxes.
well, I would listen carefully. And if there's some way that we are not going to burden the people that live in this town with some of that's just rude, someone else's taxes, then I'm probably would be in favor of it.
Okay.
But no guarantees,
That's a
but it'd be
great step.
open. to-
I would be open,
That's a
let's put
very
it that
big,
way.
Great step.
Yeah, that's a great step.
You're gonna force me to move.
Well, no, I mean, you think of it, it's just like us spending our dollars on affordable housing. It's just that it's just not collecting them. But we're
It's a
getting.
good way to look at
As
it.
long as I'm
Yeah.
not paying for it.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
what I'm
would be new
saying.
tax
I just-
In our city though, but.
Yeah.
Well, we potentially get more housing units than our $200,000 a year
Yeah.
from our
right.
budget
Yeah,
would provide for
Right.
us.
Whatever.
And they wouldn't be consuming too much of our,
That's why we gotta do the math.
Yeah, I want to see the numbers.
As long as I'm not included in our,
Yeah.
well, as far as
It's a social-
paying someone else's
It is
tax.
a socialist system like the fire
Ollie,
department.
You got a question or?
Let's not use social.
I can't hear,
When they've all.
I can't hear.
Just a
Paul.
minute.
Oh, in Arizona, is that if I certain zones that you would then benefit for?
No, it's requiring a project of a certain size. It's forcing them to provide affordable housing if they're doing a big project. So it's, I don't know why it's called inclusionary zoning, but that's what the term. So it's basically a stick that says you will, if you want to develop, I don't know,
250.
or whatever, you set a point at which if you're developing more than 20 units, 10% of them have to be affordable. So this is an opt-in by the developer. That one is you don't get a choice.
I like that you don't get it.
You like that, you don't.
We should have said that at the beginning.
Well, listen, I brought that up when I was
Different.
first elected and nobody thought that was a good idea.
Well, when they wanted
Yeah.
to, we should have said, you certainly will give you one, but you'll need to approve.
We
it.
wanted to use carrots, but our carrots didn't get bitten. So now we need this.
So they don't build a thing out there.
Well, and the inclusionary, the downside is the developer just looks at your community, and goes, yeah, I can go build and not have to deal with your affordable housing.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's what, that's what a couple of people have said.
They weren't- they
Okay,
wouldn't go.
somebody will come and do it. But, all right.
Thank you, Lois.
Thanks, Lois.
Yeah. Okay, what I'm gonna come back to you with next is a code that actually addresses all these questions. And now that I know that you guys are even interested in foregoing taxes, I'll draft it with that. And I'll reach out to Wes to provide kind of initial review of what that might look like.
Wes.
Yeah,
Our new assessor.
Thanks, Love.
Yeah.
yeah,
you.
thank you.
All right. All right.
We are at the point of reports.
Just like that.
You thought last week was fast.
No, 2 weeks ago. We didn't have one.
Where it went last 2 weeks ago.
That was fast.
I'll just, from what I can remember, which is very little. I'm on the Osborne Playground Equipment Committee. And we had our first meeting Tuesday, was it, Tom?
Last Thursday.
Was it Thursday? That's right, it was last Thursday, and we did have a little small group now, but are we getting more people?
We have two, including Councilmember Strand and one other community
Okay,
member. Will be
good.
added.
So we talked about space. It was being suggested that we cut down that space, but I think we convinced them that we didn't want to cut down the space. And then what to put down on the ground, whether it's, I don't know what this stuff is called.
Yeah, either the wood chips or the rubberized
Yeah.
surface.
And so we were in favor of the wood chips. And then I read this article in the What Actually World. I don't know if you guys read it just the other day. And the title of it was like, my sons didn't matter. And it was about these, so just got me. These little guys are one's in a walker, one's in a wheelchair, and they have to be in that. And they can't move through the the wood chips. So I made a copy of these and sent it to Tom and to John. And maybe there's a way of putting something down so that in some area, maybe it's a pathway or something like that, so that these little guys who are in East Wenatchee and probably wouldn't be coming up here, but these little guys are whoever that has kids that are in with those disabilities would still
in this community.
would still be able, would still be able to enjoy that area. So we're looking at things closely, and they'll just report when we have meetings, so you guys will be up to date.
Well, Sharon,
And
for
if you have any
ADA
suggestions,
playgrounds,
pardon me?
ADA playgrounds in big cities have the sintered rubber surface.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a hard,
Yeah.
like spongy rubber surface. So that's I don't know if you know anything about that option. Is it expensive? Is it doable?
We were thinking of money and, and maybe putting something down that wasn't real expensive, but maybe there can be some pathways, or we could develop something that would make sure that these little guys would get.
That's a great idea, Sharon. I like that.
Something, yeah.
Is that it? Is that your only report?
That is pretty much my only report, because I'm spending so much time at the pool. Having a great time teaching kids to swim. They're so cute, and they do so many cute
How many
things.
generations have you taught now?
Somebody came to the counter the other day, and they had the little gal with her, and they said, "See the lady in the orange shirt? She taught your dad how to swim." So I'm down to the grandkids of the people that are,
Love it.
It's so awesome. It's great.
And I have to say, my wife is really.
Oh, yeah.
She's teaching the little ones, and
Yeah.
it's been a ball for her, so, yeah.
It's this great place to be in the summer. That's it.
Jason.
I was only partly involved in the council meeting a couple weeks ago, so I was sitting on my boat. And I don't think you guys want a fishing report, but
I kind of do want a fishing report.
June 22nd, we had the last PRSA meeting, and that was with the consultants, and we went over some of the things we went over in study session. It's a lot, feels like a lot of big important decisions are coming down the pike, and for someone that's worked on this for 5 years now, I'm vested in it, but I also realize that if the public doesn't want it, then so I'm interested in seeing it advance farther before we get to that fork in the road. But I don't have much. That's it.
And
No report. All my meetings are in the second half of the month.
Zeke.
So there was a River Recreation Committee meeting on the 29th. Unfortunately, I got the notes, but I wasn't in town, so they just mailed them to me, but I'll bring them next time. They had quite a meeting, looking at the folks who were there. I did attend the Planning Commission meeting on the 5th, where they talked through some details on bed and breakfast and density. And so that was pretty significant. And they were coming up with they didn't know the total number of, an idea of 4% was, as far as, I gotta be careful with this because this is all kind of proposed things. It wasn't nothing in stone, of course. But they didn't know at the time how many home structures they had in the town. So then they were going to figure, when they had that down, they would think something around a 3 to 4% allowance of bed and breakfast out of that. So That was one of the things that came up.
3 to 4%.
Yep,
And we're one or less than?
we're less than one.
We're less than. Now, would those be, was there any kind of policy about how distributed they were? Could they all be in one?
That was still in flux
Okay.
as far as how to do that per block. They weren't sure just exactly because. Yeah, they didn't know yet.
Okay.
So that's about all I got on, that's the part I stuck in for. So I did that by Zoom, so. And that's the end of my report.
Oh, I've actually spent a lot of time in the river. I just spent half an hour swimming right before this meeting. Did I talk about the river rescue we did in the last?
Up above.
Yeah, okay, that was the last meeting. I just want to make sure I covered that. So we haven't had any significant anything. I've been checking the reports. I get the texts. So that's good news. And I want to make like, hey, I don't have any drownings to report from the Swiftwater Rescue Team. But they're ready and standing. There's two, usually the sheriffs that are in town who are on patrol have training. So they're ready to go. And the fire department is usually ready to go. And there's like 3 of us volunteers who are usually ready to go with like a paddleboard. So can congregate based on the dispatch number and go try to get somebody off a rock or look for a body. But there was a drowning, a Leavenworth kid drowned jumping off of a rock.
What?
Chris and Bugs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not here.
No, but not here. Yeah,
It
but
was a Leavenworth kid.
yeah. Only 2 years old. So anyway, it's just the water's always someplace to respect and, you know, it's not, it's awesome that we get to recreate in it, but we have to keep our heads about us, make sure it's, we're doing the right thing there. So even the river as it is has its dangers, but I'm in there all the time. People are paddleboarding.
Yeah.
And we heard the numbers from the chamber of people getting on and off the river. So I do swimming in place in the current and I got run over by a whole family of tubers who were really apologetic. Like, we can't drive this thing. I'm like, sorry. Anyway, that's my report. Thanks.
Igor, 0. Oh.
Sure, wow.
No laugh or anything? Or is that next week?
Oh, it's got canceled next week too.
Oh,
That's all got canceled. Nobody can get it.
All right, I did a couple things. On June 30th, I met Dave Johnson from Leavenworth Outdoor Center at the Ice School Bridge. That's the bridge on Ice School Road, the Cascade Orchard Bridge, with our parking manager, Shannon Lemons. The city will be taking a more active role in enforcing the parking situation at the put-in, ensuring that the circular driveway remains free for shuttle vehicles. As a reminder, LOC is our only permitted commercial tubing provider, and they also provide free shuttles for private floaters from both Barn Beach and the Leavenworth Boat Ramp on East Leavenworth Road. I also updated the Chamber's Recreation Ambassador Manual to reflect the parking situation at the Ice School Bridge put-in. On July 3rd, the Leavenworth Fund grant applications went live. Grants are due the last day of August. General fund grants are limited to $5,000 and lodging tax grants are limited to $10,000. On July 6th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce Board meeting and provided them with an update of your June 27th meeting. There was definitely some concern about strict enforcement of our existing sign code relative to sandwich board signs. I have added this as a discussion to the Downtown Steering Committee meeting for later this month and asked the Chamber Board to also consider the code and recommend any changes they might like to see from their membership. I've reached out to both the U.S. Forest Service and the Chelan County Emergency Management Service about the council's request for a wildfire preparedness workshop, and I'm still waiting to hear back. Reminder, they are putting on an event at Pybus Market this Thursday that interested people are encouraged to attend.
Preparedness or evacuation? I missed that.
That's same thing. Preparedness, evacuation,
We're covering all that.
Covering all the bases.
how to deal with
Also,
smoke.
how to deal with smoke as well.
Yeah, and I responded to a web submission asking about a dog park in Leavenworth. So you guys, I think, were forwarded that by Christie as well. I did provide her a response. I didn't know the council was on that one, so I copied
About a dog park? you said?
yeah, so I copied the mayor, Christie and Tom. So this is I replied that there's not currently a dog park, nor have I heard any particular need for one in city limits. I also explained my experience working with the Friends of the Acton Dog Park in Massachusetts, where the effort to build a dog park, which would have been 100% funded by grants, is still 5 years in the making and is not materialized. Everybody wants it. It's got broad support, but nobody wants it in their backyard. So when you've got a city of 1.5 square miles, where the heck would we put it?
Yeah.
So if the council wants to discuss this as a future study in this session, please let me know.
So you and Christy and I had a couple emails, and I thought it'd be good to bring up in the future, when we get those web
Yeah.
comment submissions.
So they're generally forward to you for information and we will reply to them.
I know, it'd be nice, maybe we could see the reply so that we know that they're
Yeah.
replied to.
Yeah. we
That
can
would
do
be helpful.
We can do that. We'll be, if I get it.
Because we don't need to reply, 7 people don't
No,
need
you
to
don't.
reply to somebody
You don't.
about a dog
You
park.
don't. You
But
don't.
we want to make sure that it got answered.
Understood.
So I'll be quickly on the shuttle situation for the tubers. Are they doing that thing they did last year where they would stop by parking lot 6 and pick up tubers, or that's not happening again?
They are shuttling from Waterfront Park, I was told, and from the East Leavenworth boat ramp.
Okay, because last year they were passing through the parking lot, the Glacier number 6. To pick up people. I think it was either COVID or some no, because they were doing the
Because
construction.
of the construction down on the
But
bridge.
that was a great pilot because
But
if
we
you
were
have,
also trying to keep people from parking down under the bridge.
which is what I think we're trying to do still
Yeah.
again.
Yep.
Because that's overloaded.
They volunteer this, they do this as a service.
I get that.
Okay.
But I mean, what I'm saying is there a way we could look at how well that worked last year and say, what an efficient way to let people park in our lot and then be transported there, because they're gonna get a shuttle back from East Leavenworth Road anyway. In other words, there's overflow from that area and it turns into a congested mess. I've seen it, right? In the drop-off area where the loop is, that fills up quickly and then people go all up and down the
That's
street.
why we now littered that place with no parking signs and we will be enforcing.
Right, but what I'm saying is let's give them an alternative and then maybe if there's a way to incentivize the Leavenworth Outdoor, it's out Leavenworth Outdoor Company. Incentivize them to stop at Glacier and say, hey, we'll pick you up here and bring you down there and let people know they can park at Glacier, because that seemed to work out really well. I just think it was a
It'd be
great.
interesting to see here how many we picked up there.
Well, I mean, I think if you get the word out, people know that it's, you know, they can grab their big rubber ducky and wait out front there and they'll.
No, they want you to drop your stuff off at the put in, take your car to the takeout. They're not bringing your stuff, they're bringing your body.
Oh, they have the big roof rack though, you could deflate.
That's for their commercial operation.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah, and they have a pump there, which is pretty cool. They let you pump up your stuff. So I hear you.
I used that shuttle last year. I dropped Christine and the paddle boards off at the fish
And
hatchery.
then, you know, did
Drove down
you,
to the boat ramp, got in their shuttle, listened to that guy's life story, and then.
oh, I see. So you leave your car at the takeout.
Yeah.
And then they give you a ride there. Okay,
Yep.
that makes sense. I wasn't aware that was working well.
Yeah, that's shuttling 101.
That's it. And down.
Just a quick update for you, council. I had the audit entrance last week with the auditor. And he did provide me, I've got 2 extra packets if anyone's dying to have it, but. FYI, I believe he's going to email you the documents within it. You'll be getting this wonderful document that the SAO themselves put together called Trust But Verify. It is a guide for elected officials and appointed boards to prevent fraud. Please read through it and don't think I'm your fraudster. But I'm more than happy to verify with you anything that you ever need to know. The focus this year on the audit is going to be our open public meetings, so compliance with our minutes, meetings, and executive session requirements. Our financial condition, they'll be reviewing for indications of any financial distresses. Payroll, they're going to focus on employee compensation, and specifically they let me know today, new hires, when they pointedly picked out some high-level recent placements. 3 of them are sitting right here at this table. Parking contracts, billing and collections. So because parking has blown up in the size of our revenue stream with the addition of on-street parking, that is a huge area for them to just grasp. How are we handling it? What are all the contracts for the billing, the enforcement? How's the money flowing through the third-party processors, the credit card companies to the city? And how are we, having internal controls to ensure that we're not leaving money or losing money to any of these third parties? Utility billing, just understanding basic controls. It's just a random check for utility billing. And other areas as defined. Specifically, they're looking at the pool. Because they have not looked at the pool, as they told me, in 16 years.
Wow.
And I said, wow, You're right, because I've been here 16 years and we've never
Never
audited
looked at it.
people. So they're just gonna be looking at that procedure and process, specifically the cash receiving side of it. Because there is a lot of younger folks over there handling our cash. Although, the good news is, since we transitioned to credit cards, I think we're somewhere around 60 to 70% of our revenues are now coming through the credit cards rather than the cash. So it's been a big transition. And last but not least, the federal grant compliance portion. I had mentioned to you before that they were looking into the need for me to make a correction to our CFA, which is the schedule that reports how much federal funding we expended. And it was specific to the wastewater treatment plant. What they found out after interviews today with USDA is that USDA made a mistake. USDA was using a CFDA, that's catalog of federal
Domestic assistance.
number. And so that difference has different criteria for procurement and audit purposes. So they're gonna have to not only look at just 22, but they have to relook at what they audited in 21. However, USDA has volunteered to come up with any additional funding if we are charged that for their additional review. Because it is USDA's fault for providing the wrong CFDA number. The good news of all of this, though, is that the CFDA number we were provided required 40 years of compliance review. That's the entire 40 years that we were borrowing the money. Every year I would have to report on my CFA, the money, even though we had already expended it. I would have to report it every single year and have a federal single audit every single year for 40 years. The new correct number does not have that requirement. So we will be one and done with this corrected version.
Oh, so we're not into the annual every,
Well, we will be if we continue to exceed
Well,
750,000 in federal grants each year, which we've been
Which we
doing for
probably will
several
be,
years.
right?
Are you two sure you want to run for city council? That's what I want to know right now.
Great job.
Did you look at the pay?
Cookies were really good.
Good job, man.
You didn't try the lasagna, though,
It was the Hesburgh family recipe. It goes back hundreds of years.
And the salad
Do
was
you have a
amazing.
question, Sharon?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there aren't a lot of little kids on the till. There are 5 of us that run the till and we're all over 21, me barely.
Right. Did Did anybody want the 2, or do you just want to wait for your email?
I will take the email, please.
Okay, it's searchable. Okay, the email.
Okay, so I assume they're gonna send you a PDF.
Right, I guess.
Yeah.
Search for what I'm gonna search.
That was it for me, thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I would take one.
Okay.
Yeah,
To make sure I don't give you.
Yeah. I'd rather do that, look at it on paper than computer. But it's not tiny print.
Thank you, Mayor Flory, council members, good evening. Just a couple quick updates. First of all, there's the June Public Works report is under tab 12. Please let me know if you have any questions there. Good news, yesterday we took delivery of the 40 bear-proof 96-gallon trash totes.
Cool. Yay.
Again, big shout out to Defenders of Wildlife. They graciously donated these to the city. This is $20,000 value.
Wow.
Further shout out to Joe Bridges and Rich Beausoleil with Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife. They've been instrumental in making this happen. I'm going to meet with Fish and Wildlife and Defenders of Wildlife next week, and we're going to put together, and Christie too, we're going to put together a little PR, but it's a press release. I don't know what it looks like yet, but we're going to get some info out. And we already have a couple top customers on the list to swap out totes. So we're going to deploy those this week to those critical areas of the city.
Are bear incidents up or average?
They're down according to Fish and
That's
Wildlife.
good.
Yeah,
There was a lot of bear scat. I went swimming Friday right here in Lions Park.
there's a lot next to City Hall. too.
Yeah, that's one, right next to Lions Park. Yeah, they've been eating cherries, probably from your tree, Marco.
Yeah, my tree's all done, dude. The top ones are the only ones, the birds don't get those. I leave 10% for them.
Yeah,
Be great.
so no incidents are down. There's been sightings, of course. That's per Fish and Wildlife. And last but not least, the utility division is halfway through the water meter audit, and so far, we're actually finding fairly high compliance. We were actually a little skeptical at first, but it turns out we're doing pretty good. Are finding some minor issues here and there, but nothing major.
Did you find those that you couldn't find?
We haven't gone outside the
Oh,
city
okay.
limit yet.
I'm just
So-
keeping an eye on.
Yeah, those are the ones they're holding off to the last.
All right, the Councilmember Lundgren has hand up.
Oh, have you seen much graffiti lately, or is it dying down?
Knock on wood, inside the restrooms, it's down. I noticed that there's some on the wall.
Yeah, I saw that. by the
Oh,
The
PD.
bus barn and at the retaining wall on US.
And because most of you were at the forum last night, when we were starting to get our graffiti, I ran our graffiti tags through the Yakima Police Department. They are not gang related.
Yeah.
They're not getting related?
They're not gang
Oh,
related.
not gang.
At last night's forum, it was mentioned that
Right.
It's
we're
gangs.
getting gang graffiti here, and I
Huh, I've
ran
seen a
into
lot
the
of gang
Yakima
members,
Police
but you never
Department.
know.
They're
Maybe they dress nicely.
they're not gang.
Nowadays,
The
well, they're
skate
wearing
park-
Bavarian garb.
the
That's
skate
why.
park has some graffiti on it, which is actually some pretty decent art. It wasn't just tagging, it's like a pretty good, like the kind you see on the trains, which is reasonably well created. Not just a tag. So that's I know that's city property, right? Yeah, so that has some pretty, but I think that's part of the decor that.
Oh, I should say one final update too, the waterfront restroom is now, it's been open now for a couple of weeks, but that's in full operation.
Oh, good.
Councilmember Esper?
The Ski Hill Sidewalk project, that kicks off soon,
Yeah,
right?
pre-construction meeting is tomorrow morning, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I don't have an exact start date, but we'll know more tomorrow.
And not necessarily our project, but I thought I read in there that the roundabout was gonna start at the end of July.
The bid opening is Monday,
The bid opening is Monday. Okay.
so that's of course pending a favorable bid.
Right.
It should get done right away.
Wow, they must have a really fast timeline. They're hoping to get it done before winter.
They are.
Yeah.
Hopefully it goes faster than the one in Quincy and Wenatchee.
The Easy Street one actually went pretty quick.
Yeah.
It was like.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 7 weeks. Time. It's a
Well,
roundabout.
yeah,
Doesn't seem like-
to not
Yeah.
that long when you're.
Seems like a long time for a roundabout. I don't
I
know.
don't know, when you gotta keep traffic moving while you're doing it.
No,
And they had a
everything
little
open.
bit of a survey snafu on both of those roundabouts.
Right.
Tom, I really appreciate your Public Works Department report.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I was wondering, the cemetery lot that you sold, where was that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Okay, because I thought they were all sold.
No, we have a handful left and they're primarily next to the maintenance shed.
Oh,
out there that nobody wants.
So that's where they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Likely.
And are we, I see where we got that all cleaned up back out there. So is there a projected start making that, cemetery grounds?
So that's a good question. We still have to make forward progress on that. So next step
Okay.
there is, so it's already been platted, but it needs to be surveyed.
Okay.
Is that debris pile been removed?
It has, the sweeper waste pile is gone
Yeah.
and put hauled out. We still have the yard waste pile though that needs to.
Be hauled up to win.
I had one public works / related, couple weeks ago. Couple groups of kids broke into the Osborne on a Thursday. And had propped open the door closest to the playground. So Christine noted it, I live across the street. So I let myself in, they had also propped open a window in the admin building so they could get back in. So I locked everything up, secured it, had to actually physically lock one of the doors. Someone must have a key out there in the community because one of the doors was unlocked.
Could it have been left unlocked?
I doubt it, but it could have.
It's
No, not by
unlike
parking, not by park. This was back by the playground. That door was unlocked and had been propped open with asphalt. So we've had almost every window is broken along the backside of the Osborne where the tennis courts are, kids breaking in. So we have now fenced off the entire basketball court area. So we put up chain link fence just to keep kids from going back into there.
Can't they just climb over it or put a stool and stand on it?
They could, but they're,
But most of them are looking for ease of access.
Okay.
But
Every window, Selby?
I said a lot of the windows,
Okay.
at least 4.
Wow.
Do we have cameras and did
We
we
do.
fix the?
And the night that I was there, that I went and turned off all the lights and locked the doors, kids came back at 10 o'clock trying to get into that door.
You saw that?
And they couldn't get in.
No, they
Okay.
couldn't.
Wow.
I'm too scary. I can see, what's going on in this area, but I don't want to at night go creeping back behind the building.
No, we have good camera footage back there.
Okay, good. So you just see me creep.
Well, we did catch selfie on that.
Yes.
It's
10 o'clock at night.
Okay, we're gonna move on and ask for a motion to recess into executive session for 30 minutes under RCW 423140 4B on wages and collective bargaining, and no action is going to be taken.
So moved.
Seconded.
How many minutes did we say?
30 minutes.
Too long.
Think we'll need the full 30?
You want to start with 20?
20.
Okay, we're gonna start with 20 minutes.
We start at 15, we can be done by 8:30.
I don't care.
15 it is.
50.
You can always extend.
I know we can extend. We've done that before many times.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye, Tom.
Is there anybody waiting?
Motion to,
So we will. I would entertain a motion to go back, recess into executive session for an additional 10 minutes.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? They're unanimous. Okay, we're gonna go back in. 10 minutes. Stop the recording.
Keep that.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Well,
Who made the motion?
I'm gonna break that tie.
Almost everybody.
Well, I know, but.
I think it
who-
was a
who-
ventriloquist.
Give it to-
Give it to a keyboard. I'll take it.
I know Sharon seconded.
Well, Zeke also, but, okay.
Okay.
We'll split it.
Yeah.
What are we splitting?
The first and the second.
Huh?
The banana.
Banana. You can have my part.
I actually really enjoyed having the